Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. I'm glad to have you, and hopefully you are glad to have been having me. Welcome. How's everybody doing? Everybody doing good? Feeling good? Feeling good on a Monday. Sparkling thoughts. Give me the hope to go on. Let's do this. Let me pull up chat so we can get it on screen so all the lovely people watching afterwards can see your beautiful profile pictures. There we go. What's up? Gotta say, I'm loving the warm yellow vibe, Luke. Thank you, Sophie. I am settling into it. When I first set it up, I was like really not feeling it. And then everybody in the comments and in chat was like, ooh, we really like that. So I'm going with it. I'm trusting you guys. And, you know, I think it's that I'm just not I'm used to doing like the gamer thing. And gamer thing is like always blue, throw in some purple, maybe a little green. If it's not RGB, it ain't gamery. So this throws me off because this is just normal. But yeah, it's fine. It works. Gets the job done. Yeah, Irox, we normally, back before little Orion was born in mid-June, we'd always start streams at 10 a.m. Mountain Standard, which is where I live. So about half an hour ago is when we normally start them. However, of course, with the baby, now there's 2 kids to get ready in the morning. There's 2 little routines to juggle, and that just makes things a little complicated. So I started to kind of rework the schedule to make sure I could give Nikki some help to get up and going. And now we're getting comfy enough to the point where I think that we can start pulling that start time further back, which I like. So I think eventually we'll get back. I'd like to get to like 9 a.m. start like an hour and a half ago, just like a regular work day, but stream during that time. Because a lot of you guys, like my viewership is most active specifically in like work hours from like 9 a.m. to like 4 p.m. It's why all of my videos always go up at like 9 to 10 a.m. somewhere in there, depending on what the topic is, because some topics perform better if you post them later versus earlier. I don't know why. It's just something we've noticed. By the way, no video this morning because we had a little snafu with the editing. So that will go up tomorrow. Don't stress it. But yeah, we're gonna have a busy week. Video tomorrow, video on Wednesday, video on Friday. And yeah, it's gonna be crazy. This is gonna be a fun little stream where we're looking at some crazy hot takes from the community, some from you guys on Discord. We're gonna look at a couple of posts from some gaming journalists that some people consider hot takes, some people don't. So I'm gonna see what you guys think, where you guys land, if you think that these are hot takes or not. And yeah, we should be able to wrap everything up within a couple of hours, and then I can get back to working on a couple of reviews that we have coming in the next couple of weeks, because surprisingly, a couple of studios have sent games well in advance. Like, it's very refreshing, because recently it's all been like, okay, the game releases tomorrow, here's your review code, figure it out, and that's always miserable. But a lot of these studios are doing like a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks ahead of time, which is awesome. Is the review embargo for Baldur's Gate 3 on the 2nd or the 3rd? My understanding is the 2nd. It might change depending on the size of the publication. It's weird though, because it's already in early access. So the whole review process for Baldur's Gate 3 has been it's not been traditional. I'll just say that, as far as I can tell. But it's also a huge game, so that's a lot of it. Let's see. Tears of the Kingdom review, Final Fantasy 16 review. I mentioned this on Discord, so just in case you guys aren't aware, if you are a member of our Discord, you can pop in, ask questions, and then I will try to answer them when I get a chance. Do they not have a notifications tab, really? Oh, that's surprising. Maybe if I search it like this, I don't know. I was gonna show you, but basically, the Discord allows you to ask questions and stuff direct, which is super cool. And I answered this question, I think yesterday or the day before. Basically, Final Fantasy 16, for whatever reason, just does not generate much interest online. I don't know why. Maybe in some communities it does, but in my community with my audience, it just frankly doesn't drive much attention. People just aren't that interested. I don't know why. It just is the case. They just aren't that interested. So I could do like, I could play through the whole game, setting aside all these other games I have to play for review, and work on like an hour-long critique of it, put it out, and it might do 30 to 50K. And frankly, at this point, all that time, all that money spent on it just doesn't make sense. So, yeah, it just doesn't make sense. As for Tears of the Kingdom, that's a weird one. I've been playing that one just to enjoy myself. However, I have run into kind of a point where I'm just feeling burnt out on it. So I'm putting it down for now. I'm moving on and playing some other stuff just to relax, because I don't want to just totally get burnt out and end up hating it. But yeah, I weirdly got a little burnt out on it. It was a little strange. I'm just not used to that. So I'll go back to it. But as of right now, I'm just kind of like, let's take a breather. So long story short, I don't expect to do any like big videos on those games. Not because I don't like them. It's just a lot of mitigating circumstances, a lot of moving parts that kind of complicate it. There we go. Okay. At what point did you get burnt out? I don't know. I'm like, I don't even know. I would have to look, but I'm probably like 60, 70 hours into Tears of the Kingdom, and I've had a really good time, but I'm just at the point where I'm like, I don't feel the urge to play anymore. You know how you get that with some games where you're just like, I'm good. And that's where I'm at with it. So nothing against it. I just don't feel the urge to go back and play more. So I'm worried if I push myself and play more, I'm just going to end up hating it or having a negative opinion of it. So I'm just not going to push it. And in a month or two, I'm sure I'm going to get the urge to go back, and I'll go keep going and keep chugging. I try to like at least 1 or 2 games a year just do for myself, just play for myself, because I'm not sure people like really. Oh, that would have been bad. I almost pulled up like the Google Doc of a review I'm working on to show you, but like when you're playing a game for review in the context of like what I'm doing here, it's not that I'm just sitting on the couch playing the game. Like if I'm playing, I don't know, if we just say like hypothetically Starfield or something, they send review codes out in a couple weeks or a few weeks, and I get that to start playing it. For that, I need to record everything. So I have to be playing here, hooked up to the capture cards and everything, or I have to be playing like upstairs on a console with my Ninja 5 Atomos recorder going. And then I record everything I do. I have to keep track of every single clip that I'm recording so that if something happens, I can be like clip number 5, 23 minutes, 10 seconds in, dash, this is what happens, this is why it's notable. And I have to organize all those notes. And then after the game is done, or usually in the case of a review, while I'm still playing the game, you have to put all this together. You have to arrange the script and figure out how you're going to talk about things, all the while trying to play it as normally as you can so that you don't get a stilted opinion of it. So it's not as relaxing, I think, as a lot of people imagine, especially because with some of these reviews, you have like a day and a half and you have to get through the whole game and you have to get the video made and the script and all those notes done at the same time. So honestly, for some games, the review process can make it a lot less enjoyable than it would be if you were just playing it for fun. So I try to have 1 or 2 games a year that I can just play for me and that I enjoy, that I don't feel the pressure to like make big videos on or anything. That's very freeing, frankly. So, you should check out the guy named Mr. Weenie. It's just lying about Starfield. Mr. Weenie. That sounds like bait right there. What's a title of a video he's made? And I can look up the video. Is there a video you've seen that's like particularly cringe, or is it like on Twitter or something? Because I can look it up if you give me something specific. Let's be real, after Elden Ring, there's nothing going on here in the market. Elden Ring was one of those games that comes along like once every 2 to 3 years that everybody plays and everybody loves. And it's very rare to have 2 of those in a single year. Like think of like Red Dead Redemption 2. Think of probably, you know, Hogwarts Legacy, I think was one that just had huge mass market appeal. And then of course Elden Ring. And so you get it every once in a while with a game that just comes along and is dominating all public discourse, and everybody's playing it. Even your friends that don't play games are playing those games, you know? And I don't know, we might be in for a treat this year. We might have 2. You might see Starfield also take the cake, because that's starting to get to that level, as we'll discuss. There's some craziness going on with that. I don't actually expect Spider-Man 2 to have the same sort of mass market appeal that the first game did. Not because it's not going to be good. I think it's going to be great, but I haven't seen a lot of like crazy excitement for it. Like, people are excited, but not stupid hyped like they were for the last one. Because the last one was the first really good looking Spider-Man game in like 15 years. You know, it was so exciting to finally be getting a really good Spider-Man game. But with this one, I haven't seen the same level of hype. And I don't know if that's just me, if that's just that I've missed it, but that's what I've observed. And so it's very anecdotal, to be clear. But yeah, it's exclusive for now. It'll probably come to PC in a year or 2. I still don't know why they haven't brought The Last of Us Part 2 to PC. The only reason I can think of is that they're working on a remaster/remake for it. Otherwise, why not? Like, they already released Last of Us Part 1. Probably they're waiting to time it out with the HBO show. So they'll do season 2 and then also drop the remake like a few months before. That would make sense. One of Mr. Weenie's vids is called New Starfield Leaks Reveal Pay to Win Membership. Let's see. Oh, with a question mark. What's the rule on the internet? Isn't there a rule on the internet that says, like, if a video is, or an article or something is made with a question mark, the answer is always no? I forget what that's called, but there's like an actual name for that phenomenon. If an article or a journalist titles something that ends in a question mark, the answer is no, always. Because if the answer was yes, there wouldn't be a question mark. It would just be a statement. So the answer is no, because they're trying to say it without actually saying it. Okay, I mean, I guess we can look at this. I'm into this. We said we're looking at gaming hot takes today. Let's see how crazy it is. So first things first, this is a video. I'm gonna share it in chat. Don't berate this guy. Don't go crazy on him. We're just looking. We don't know. Maybe we're gonna totally agree with everything that he says. You don't know yet. We're gonna check it out. So this guy, Mr. Weenie, smaller YouTuber. So I love to see him on the grind. Love that. And let's give this a fair shot. Let's see what he's got to say. I have no idea who this is. This was submitted by somebody in chat. So let's see what we're dealing with. Convince me.
Fuck up, everyone, because Starfield just had some major...
Wait, whoa, that started...
Wake the fuck up, everyone.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, what a way to start. That's a good way to get your video demonetized instantly. if you, just in case people are not aware, if you say any hard curse word in the first 7 seconds of a video, instantly demonetized. Like you just don't mess with it. So that's a bold way to start the video. I'll give you that. That's okay.
Because Starfield just had some major leaks dropped into our laps, and what we are all excited for just got even more amazing. Amazingly shit. That's right, I haven't changed my mind a bit on Starfield. This tragic dung heap is headed straight for the second-hand shelf in a matter of days. Xbox.
Okay, so I don't know anything about this guy. Seems like he's convinced this is going to be a bad game. My stance is that I look at things skeptically. And all that means, it's not a cynic. This guy is already coming off like a cynic. All being a skeptic means is that you're not convinced of something till there's adequate evidence to believe and accept that thing. So there are things to look at with Starfield that I think are pretty encouraging. There's also a lot of red flags, a lot of things that don't make a lot of sense. And of course, their past history is pretty shite. So for me, it's a mixed bag, but I don't think you can deny that what is being pitched here is pretty interesting and compelling. So I'm intrigued by it. But when you come in and immediately you're unwilling to be convinced either which way, being like a cynical prick and being a hyped up fan are so far on the extremes of either side, they almost meet up. Like if you think of it just as a circle, they are so extreme, they kind of end up being the same thing because they refuse to change their minds and they're very rigid in their opinions. And already, like, if this guy's goal is to convince people of his opinion, I don't think this is the way to do it, just as a point of constructive criticism.
Xbox virgins will no doubt be returning their ultra in a
Okay, hold on. He's just coming out swinging with all these. Hold on. Okay.
matter of days. Xbox virgins will no doubt be returning their Ultra Virgin X edition of Starshit as soon as they realize this indie title is capped at only 30 FPS.
Okay, this guy is like actually a troll. Is this guy for real? Is this guy for real? I don't even know if I believe he's real. This might all just be a joke. Top 5 reasons Starfield will fail. Starfield is doomed to fail. What I think of Starfield. How to play like a pro in Chivalry 2. I don't know. I'm not convinced this guy is real. Because this is... Like, I know he's trying to get a rise out of people, but like calling it an indie game is factually ridiculous. Like, it's just not correct. And calling your interlocutors, calling the people you're talking to virgins and losers and stuff is just, it's a little toxic. just a little.
What a joke. And
yeah, what a joke. Wrong. Dude, so many people like took the bait. And he's replied to like all of them. I honestly don't know if this is like a viable strategy anymore though. For like growing on YouTube. Maybe. I mean, he's got a smaller channel and he's getting decent views for the size of the channel, but I just... There was a time back years ago where you could do this and where you could just be like super, super toxic and attention was attention and you were fine. But I don't know if that works anymore. So, yeah, I would be shocked if that guy actually believes everything he's saying, honestly. It seems to me more like he's trolling. Throwing out some of that stuff is just like, I think he's baiting. It's not due controversy can only grow your brand so far until people just start ignoring you. Yeah, I just think, I guess it depends on what we mean by like growing, because none of those people are subscribing. I don't think that there's many people that are doing that, that are going to be like following him or watching more of his stuff. Like if anything, they're going to just put him on a block list and ignore him. And like this, we just looked at that. We got a few minutes in, and Jacob and I are gonna just cut that stream clip, and we're not gonna give him the attention he wants. So we're just gonna cut that because clearly he's he's trolling and baiting. So like right there, I'm just not interested. He's legit. I talked to him and he deleted my comments. Well, and that very well may be the case, but to me, it's clear that he is exaggerating the negativity and exaggerating his frustrations to try and get a rise out of people, which, to be fair, is very funny. It is funny to like troll people or to exaggerate things. It can be funny. But I just don't find it very productive or interesting. Damn, you multitasking drinks. Yeah, baby. Got my Red Bull and I have a Premier Protein shake. This one is one we tried for the first time. Cinnamon roll. Not a sponsor. Honestly, it's not bad. It's not bad. It's a little weird, has a weird aftertaste, but most protein shakes have a weird aftertaste, if we're being honest. If we're being real. Let's see. He didn't get the canvas bag when he bought the Fallout 76 Power Armor Edition, hence why he's bitter. Well, to be fair, I think everybody should be bitter over Fallout 76. I'm bitter over that because it was basically criminal what they tried to do. But I don't see how that justifies you being like insane and like saying things that are clearly wrong. Did I see the leak on Project Q? I did not. Yeah, I believe the lawsuits are still going through. That's the last thing I heard. I don't know. I'm scared. Whenever I Google or I search something on YouTube and Dreamcast guy is the #1 search result, I usually am like, okay, then it's probably not worth talking about. Yeah, calling it an indie game. Well, like that's the thing. If he's trying to just get a rise out of people, it is kind of funny to just poke and poke and poke. And then you see all of the comments and people are like, actually, it's not an indie game. Actually, like I hear that and I'm like, okay, so he's kind of like he's rage baiting. Okay, I'm done. But there are people that see that and then go, actually, I'm gonna correct this guy on everything he said, and like that's what he wants. Comments are comments, likes are likes, dislikes are dislikes. YouTube counts it all as engagement. So yeah, Luke Stevens trying not to say borderline criminal in the same sentence as Cyberpunk and Fallout 76 challenge impossible. You're not wrong. I can't help it, dude. Todd Howard said that it will even hit 60 on PC. So the fact that he's bragging it can hit 60 on PC maybe shows that it's either extremely demanding or extremely unoptimized. Everything I've heard from people that actually know what they're talking about, because I don't, have said that this is most likely going to be a CPU bound game, which, like, to simplify all of this, as far as I can tell, with modern gaming hardware, it seems like GPUs have accelerated and made a ton of progress over the last 10 years, for example. From console generation to console generation, but CPUs tend to make slower, more iterative improvements. And a lot of games are not optimized for like multi-threaded code, or they're not meant to take advantage of a ton of cores. It's usually based off of one core is calculating most of the stuff for the game. And as a result, you can have an amazing graphics card that can handle the graphic side of actually drawing the image on the screen. But if your game is heavy on the CPU side, has a lot of simulation and stuff like that, performance will always be limited, because every frame, it has to have simulated certain things by the time that frame is presented. And if it can't do that fast enough because the CPU isn't fast enough, then it's going to hold the whole performance back. That will be the bottleneck that prevents full flow through the pipe of performance, as it were. So it seems that Starfield is going to be a very CPU bound game, and that could also be because it's not well optimized. It could also just be the creation engine, and it could also be that there really is so much being simulated that it's just that heavy and intensive. Or most likely, it's a combination of all three. So Thoughts on the AC codename Red protagonist controversy? Is it a controversy? I thought they just like came out, or it was like leaked that it's going to be a, I forget, they walked, like they swapped it, the leaks got it backwards. So it was like, I think initially they said one of the characters was going to be female and she was going to be the stealth character, and then there was going to be an African character playing like more of a melee focused samurai, but then another leak said that it was reversed, something like that. I don't know if it's even a controversy. I know I saw some people on like Twitter that were upset that you were going to be playing as a woman and potentially as a black person, and to those people I say, oh, go fuck yourself. It'll be funny if it's engine FPS locked and going beyond the limit, it will glitch out. I mean, that's kind of what happened with Fallout 76. They had movement speed tied to the frame rate, which is like so stupid, like especially for long-term health of the game. But Fallout 76, if you got the FPS running higher and faster, and so you like looked at the ground while you ran so that it was able to run faster and more efficiently, you could move faster. So you like stare at the ground and then you could run at 2x speed, which doesn't make any damn sense at all. But it's because they tied the movement speed and the game speed to the frame rate, because they assumed everybody would be running at the same frame rate on consoles. Just the whole thing was like built by people who never thought, oh, maybe this is going to run on PC and get running even faster. People just didn't think about it. Yong's video on AC killing other UB franchises is an interesting one. I saw it. I didn't watch the video, but I saw it like pop up in the list of videos on my homepage. And I didn't watch it because I'm just kind of like, yeah, no duh. Like, yeah, it's killing off a lot of their other franchises, a lot of franchises that have not made money in like 15 years. Like, you can be upset about it, but you should have gone and bought those other games if you really cared about them. Like, it's not that complicated. Assassin's Creed is the one franchise Ubisoft has had that has consistently generated crazy high revenues and brought back profits and returns on the investment. All of these other franchises maybe break even, like Far Cry, basically, like it can break even, but it's a struggle. Watch Dogs, apparently Legion was just a disaster, lost a ton of money, especially because that was super complex and very expensive to develop. There's just a lot of stuff like that. Yes, the solution to CPU that Star Citizen used is the horizontal one. The vertical solution is better hardware. Horizontal is using many hardware. They will use the CPU of every player using the server right now. Yeah, that works with the online stuff, but Starfield can't really get out of that. It's why I've said, get ready. There's going to be a lot of games in the coming years that start to use the cloud a lot more, which will give us the advantage. We looked at it with the Ubisoft Scalar tech, if you remember that. This thing. And basically, like, the whole idea is that they can take games and instead of having a single engine that ties all of these systems together in one package, they want to have basically a server infrastructure that can handle each chunk of the engine independently, so that you can then basically just be rendering the game on your native hardware and all the other stuff is run in the cloud. So you could have crazy huge worlds. You could have millions of NPCs with actually like realistic behaviors. You could do the Chat GPT level dialogue stuff like we saw in that NVIDIA showcase that they did. You could do all of that and also replace and upgrade parts of the engine effectively in the cloud without having to do anything else as far as like updating the engine or updating the game. It's just all in real time. The power of this is that you get some insane quality and scale. The downside is that even single player games will require online connections with decent transfer speeds in order to run this. So you get something, you lose something. So like a lot of people are going to be very pissed when games that use this kind of tech are announced, because they're going to say like, oh my God, now like if I want to play a single player game, it has to be online. If I'm in an airplane, I can't play this game on my ROG Ally or anything. And the answer is no, you can't. But it allows them to do some actually insane, ridiculous stuff that could be kind of compelling. So just be ready. There's going to be a lot of games that use this kind of tech in the coming years. Star Citizen is already doing it, but those games get away with it because, of course, they're online. But once you start to see games pitched as single-player titles that are using this kind of tech, there will be people throwing fits about it. So just be prepared. Just be prepared. In polite, well, so specifically with regards to lag and stuff, what that tech will be used for, think of like AI or simulating NPCs. That type of thing does not actually require really low latency, right? Because all you're doing is you're simulating, okay, so this NPC went here, paid for this, and then they traded that object and they came back home, and then that object sat in the store for 2 in-game days. So the store owner dropped the price of it, and then another NPC came and bought it, took it back to their home where they used that object to do this other thing, grow these plants, and then they brought those back to the shop owner, sold those. And so you're simulating like an economy, behaviors of NPCs and all that, but that doesn't need to be run right there on the native hardware instantaneously with low input lag. Doesn't matter. You can do the slower stuff that's not as important, and you can simulate that off the native hardware and do that in the cloud, and it's totally fine. And that loosens up a lot of the weight that would normally be on this hardware. So there's reasons to do it. And I mean, seriously, the potential for this hardware or for this technology is insane. You could have single player games that have 1 million NPCs. Pretty easily you could do that. But then there's all these other considerations. Like, okay, it's using cloud tech. Who's paying for the servers? Where does that money come from? The tech that you're running here is very expensive, very complicated. So where does that money come from? So it probably is going to be something introduced in more live service games than single player games, especially up front, just because those live service games will continue to generate money that can pay those server costs. But games and studios like Xbox has the Microsoft Azure cloud infrastructure. Like, I would not be surprised at all if they start to introduce some stuff like that using the Azure system that they can get a deal on. That's more of the concern with Microsoft's competitive edge. Like the Azure infrastructure, it's insane. So I'd be more worried about that. This is a site someone did that explains server meshing. Oh, it might have blocked the link. But yeah, look up server meshing. It's crazy. There's a lot of really amazing stuff that they can do. And also look up like Star Citizen and what they're doing with their shard system to have like persistent entities streaming and stuff like that. It's actually crazy. And we just haven't seen many games use that kind of tech yet. But I think in the next few years, especially towards the end of this generation, we'll see a lot of it. Uso, I have no idea. Probably go like look up a tech YouTuber or forum or something. I'm just a dumbass that plays video games. I have no idea. Yeah, Zach, there's been a handful of things that have shown that kind of tech. Let's see, GeForce, AI NPC. Yeah, this thing. It was the video posted in this absurd ultra wide aspect ratio. Like, this is the aspect ratio of the video. Okay. It's like actually crazy. But this is what they showed using the kind of AI tech to talk with NPCs.
We are thrilled to showcase an immersive and dynamic interaction between a player Kai and a non-playable character named Jin. This captivating ramen shop scene was...
Okay. So just to be clear, this is a player character going up and speaking to an NPC. This has not been scripted. He's going in here. He's been given a couple of basic instructions of information in the world that he can communicate.
Hey Jen, how are you? Unfortunately, not so good.
How come?
So you can see the little microphone icon. What they're demoing here is that you would have like your microphone from your headset open, and then you just talk to the NPC. And it can translate it, transcribe it, send it off to the server, figure out what is being said, and then they can think about it and the NPC can send a response back. This is something that would be possible with that shard scalar tech that we were talking about before.
Worried about the crime around here. It's gotten bad lately. My ramen shop got caught in the crossfire.
Can I help?
If you want to do something about this, I have heard rumors that the powerful crime lord Kuman Aoki is causing all sorts of chaos in the city. He may be the root of this violence.
I'll talk to him. Where can I find him?
I have heard he hangs out in the underground fight clubs on the city's east side. Try there.
Okay, I'll go.
Be careful, Kai.
So just like that, you sit down, you have a conversation with an NPC in real time, and that happens. So some people, of course, have downvoted this because they're like, it's a little, yeah, it sounds unnatural. But again, this is a very early proof of concept. Like, this is showing what you could do with generative AI in a game. This has not been polished. This hasn't been refined. So imagine this after a few generations of improvements. It could actually get to the point where it's like, oh, this is freaking me out. This is really, really cool. So imagine in a game like Cyberpunk 2, Cyberpunk 2078 or whatever they do, and you just like walk into a location and you can just talk with an NPC. You can just have a conversation. It would be pretty amazing. It could be really, really cool. There's all sorts of cascading other things you have to consider as a designer. Like, how do you make this guy's personality different from the personality of the person on the street corner soliciting you? You know, how does that work? How do you change their personality or the way they talk depending on how busy the store is? Is that going to change? Does he get a little more frantic? How does that change? How do you make this guy respond to the inevitable reality that will appear when 12-year-olds come in and start asking, like, can you make me a penis bowl? Like, how do you make this guy respond to that? Do you consider it? Like, you have to factor all these other things because no doubt nothing is going to work as cleanly as this example where, what can I do for you, my friend Jin? Everybody's going to walk in. Sup, Jin? Get me a drink and a cold soda pop and some noodles. Let's chat it out, bro. What's up? And you got to figure out how the hell you decipher that. So it's not going to be that easy, but like, as we've seen with all these tech demos for years and years and years and years and years, every time there's an idea like this, let me correct that. Almost every time there's an idea like this, within a decade, we see it come to fruition. And at the time, it seems unreasonable. It seems so far out of the realm of possibility. But it ends up working. We end up getting it. Do you guys remember this? So this, I've shown this before. This is from a tech demo 10 years ago, June 11th, 2013. This was a tech demo. And this, at the time, looked insane. The idea we were going to get games that look like this was a fever dream. People are like, no way, we live in the future. And now we look at this, and honestly, it doesn't look that remarkable, especially when you see the characters, their faces, facial animations and stuff. It really is not that impressive. Even compared to what we got in like the later PS4 generation with The Last of Us Part 2 on this same hardware running on the PS4. So it is very cool looking, but we eventually achieved this and surpassed it. But when this was being produced and when people saw this for the first time, they didn't think that this looked possible. They were like, okay, this is probably pretty pre-rendered and stuff. I can't imagine this is running in total real time. But sure enough, it was. It's also a really funny tech demo. I'll just give him that. Yeah, his face looks creepy AF. That's the thing is, by the end of that same generation, we ended up getting even better quality than that. So it may seem insane now. It may seem like that AI stuff is a fever dream and will never be in games. I would be shocked if it isn't. Just give it a few years. Give it a few years. Can you imagine the hype that will surround an RPG that allows you to just talk with NPCs? Can you imagine how insane and how much the internet will blow up when a developer that's well known, like, I don't know if it would be Rockstar that tries it first, or Ubisoft, or Todd comes out for Elder Scrolls 6 and describes something like that. People are going to lose their minds. People are going to lose their minds. That game will sell millions and millions and millions of copies. And it might be a total disaster. It might not work at all, but it'll be very, very interesting. It will be controversial, I agree, Legend, because a lot of people are going to start freaking out about privacy stuff. They're going to be like, oh, so you're listening to me while I play my games? Yeah, sure are. Sure am. Yes, ma'am. And for some reason, people think that they're special enough that that matters. That's what drives me crazy. Okay, this is a slight detour. When I worked at Best Buy, selling like TVs and stuff to people, I would have people come in, and they were always boomers. There are always people in like their 50s and 60s that like work really, you know, they might be retired. They work as like a farmer or something. And the reason I say that is because like, these are not people working in national security. Okay. They're not people with like industry secrets, the nuclear codes or anything. And they would always be the ones to ask, does this TV have a microphone and a camera built in? I remember one guy with his wife. It was like I don't know what he did for work specifically, but he looked like a farmer probably. Came in with his boots and his plaid shirt and his jeans and everything. And he came in and he was like convinced that these TVs we would be selling him actually had cameras and microphones hidden inside. And I was like, no, sir, like, you can look up online. People do teardowns of these. They open up the backs, they take them apart to figure out how they work and how to mod it and do stuff like that to get it running at higher refresh rates. There's no cameras in this. And he's like, well, that's just what they want you to think. And I was like, I'm going to be real, dude. Like, I didn't say this to him, but in my mind, I'm thinking, what makes you think you're special enough for anybody to give a crap about what you're doing while you're watching TV? You know, like, nobody cares. Nobody cares. You know? I just don't understand it. It's always the people that are the most anal about security almost always are the ones that have nothing going on. And so it makes them feel special, you know? Yeah, never trust somebody that always thinks they are out to get him. Yeah. Everyone's the main character in their own story. Exactly. Like, there are steps you can take very reasonably on your iPhone. If you use an iPhone, you can use I think it's called lockdown mode or something. I forget. But there's a mode on here. It's like lockdown. Yeah, lockdown mode. Under privacy and security. It's at the very bottom, and it's just this thing right here. If you look up on your settings right now, you could turn it on. Lockdown mode is an extreme optional protection that should only be used if you believe you may be personally targeted by a highly sophisticated cyber attack. Most people are never targeted by attacks of this nature. When iPhone is in lockdown mode, it will not function as it typically does. Apps, websites, and features will be strictly limited for security, and some experiences will be completely unavailable. I've tried to run this before, and it like greatly diminishes the quality of the user experience, like by a lot. And it's because if you actually want to be secure, you probably just shouldn't have a phone. Honestly, you shouldn't be using smartwatches. You shouldn't be using computers, because realistically, if you're that concerned about them figuring out where you are or what you're doing, they're going to figure it out. There's just no way to stop it. You owning a TV is not going to be the difference, you know? And it's just with all of these people that are really irrational, and then I'll shut up. All of these people that are rational about this kind of thing, you just have to ask them, play it out. Okay, let's say there is a secret camera and microphone hidden in this TV that nobody knows about and nobody has ever discovered or found. And let's say they are listening to you, Farmer Joe, while you watch NASCAR on a Thursday afternoon since you're retired. And I don't even know what you're doing that you're that scared about, but let's just say like they hear you talking about, I don't even know, like any example I can come up with that would be worth them listening about would be something illegal, in which case you have other problems. But like, even if they heard you talking about how you like smoking weed, you like the reefer or something, are you saying that like Samsung TVs are going to then report you to the authorities and then you're going to go to court and be sentenced because your TV heard you? Really? Like that's what you're worried? You just have to play it out, because once you play it out, they realize, okay, this sounds pretty stupid. Now there were TVs that did have cameras and microphones in them. It's true. Even a lot of modern TVs have like the microphone in the controller, so you can like use the Google Assistant and stuff. So they do have those. You press the button and you can talk into it. Some TVs like a decade ago probably did have cameras in them, because that was at the start of like Kinect was huge and the Wii was huge and everybody loved that. But like those TVs didn't really sell well because people were just like, I don't really love it. But like, do you think that there's secret cameras hidden in your TV that they really want to spy on Farmer Joe? Like, come on, dude. Even if they were, what are you doing that you're so scared of them hearing about? You know, like if I were secretly like a super prolific serial killer and I had 1,000 bodies hidden under my house, maybe then, yeah, but I wouldn't be using a cell phone either if I was that paranoid. Like, I don't know why this guy's like, look on my iPhone. I'm going to Google how this TV is going to spy on me. I'm like, dude, I think you're just having fun. I think you just like to think that you are the star in the newest version of the Bourne Identity, where you doing nothing in your day-to-day life is now the new exciting thing. Yeah, people scared of a camera and a TV have no idea how much information companies have about them. For real. If you can download the data that Google, for example, has on your account, and you'll be blown away at just how much. And there's even little stuff like my phone popped up with a little notification. We went to a restaurant. I had forgotten I had been to that restaurant. I didn't think I'd ever been there before. And it popped up and asked me to leave a review. And it said last time you were here was like 2019. Oh. And I thought back and was like, oh, it's right. I totally was here like 4 years ago. I had forgotten, but the computer didn't forget. But it had logged where I had gone. It had detected that I was in that location. I had gone to that restaurant. It knew I had been there. And when I went back 4 years later, they were like, oh, leave a review. By the way, you were here 4 years ago. Is it better? Is it worse? What do you think? Like, that's kind of crazy. But whether you want it, like, they're going to know that about you no matter what, I think is the point. Michael Allen, government worker here. Oh no, we have an insider in our midst, guys. Oh my God. If I needed to know something about you, I would sift through your garage. It tells way more about you. Found lots of evidence that way. I believe it. And this is the other thing that never is brought up. Think of the processing power. The processing power involved with sifting through camera, voice, and speech data for everything and every person in the country that buys one of these TVs. Like, do you really think that they're going to do that? Do you really think that they're going to use all of these servers to do it? It just doesn't make any sense. Oh, garbage. Did I say garage? Garbage too. Yeah, the garage probably also tells you a lot. Garbage is how they caught that serial killer.
Hello, first time here. You heard that Project Q is going to run on Android platform. I would like to see it succeed.
That actually doesn't surprise me that much. Sony has a relationship with Google. They've used Android TV in their TVs for years and years and years. So that wouldn't actually surprise me. Yeah, doesn't surprise me. But it's also a bit of a bummer because Android TV sucks. And Android is okay, but one of the other downsides with Android is that the long-term support for these things is pretty abysmal. They do not get supported very much compared to like a lot of other hardware and software. So that worries me. I would much prefer if they announced that they were going to be using their own software, like a version of the PS5 operating system Lite or something like that. But anyway, they would use AI. Yeah, AI still requires, like, do you know how much processing power ChatGPT uses? Look at this. Look at this. ChatGPT 3, so not even the most advanced one, has a massive neural network with 175 billion parameters. It requires 3.2 million USD in computing resources alone for training it. It ran to train it 285,000 processors or processing cores and 10,000 graphics cards, equivalent to about 800 petaflops of processing power. And with ChatGPT 4, this article was written before that, it required even more processing power than that. And then this, once it's trained, people are saying it can run probably off of like a 3080. So like, are we saying that they're going to be running like a $1,500, $2,000 little instance of a server in terms of hardware to listen to you talk about the Funyuns that you dropped into your couch? You know, like the training stuff is what's particularly expensive. Like that's where they have the 10,000 GPUs. Once it's trained, it's not that difficult. But each one of these steps, each one of these improvements just becomes more and more demanding, and they have to train it more and more and more, and it just gets insanely expensive. Running 3 tabs in Chrome requires 10 times that of ChatGPT. Yeah. Oh God. Thoughts on the Switch 2? I'm freaking excited for it. I love my Switch. I just am bummed that it just feels like Nintendo never really. Well, I think the first year or two are when the best Switch games came. And then they were the third-party machine. They brought all those third-party games to it, and that was cool. Like playing L.A. Noire on the go was awesome. But then we got the Steam Deck, and now the ROG Ally, and there's a lot of other kind of third-party ones that do similar stuff. So now playing third-party games on the Switch doesn't make any sense because they'll run worse, look terrible. And so you're just going to run them on the Steam Deck or on the ROG Ally or whatever, or even xCloud. That wasn't really huge back when the Switch dropped, but now it's very, very accessible. So the only thing the Switch really has going for it are first-party titles, and we get maybe one a year. And we already got ours for this year. So, like, I'm one of those people. I've been waiting for another Mario Kart game. They never made their own for the Switch. Like, they ported the Wii U's Mario Kart to the Switch and then added a bunch of DLC and tracks and stuff, which was good. But the Switch never got its own Mario Kart, which is insane. And like little stuff like that, where it just seems like they never really gave it the full treatment. So Steam Deck and ROG Ally are way pricier. I think the cheapest Steam Deck, isn't it like $430 or $440 or something like that? It's a little bit more, for sure. However, like the fact that the Switch still costs $300, I believe it might be $250 now, but it's still, you know, close to a few $100 for what it offers, I think is aggressive. I think is aggressive. It was already kind of outdated and really weak when it launched 6 years ago, which I know 6 years ago is ridiculous. I will give them though, Nintendo's coding teams are wizards. How they got Tears of the Kingdom running on that thing is absolutely amazing to me. It's so impressive. So damn impressive. I think I had a little, while I was playing with the cap of the protein shake bottle, I got some of the like glue from around the cap on my finger, and now it's on my mouse. So I'm gonna wipe that off. Let's look at this, okay? So I said we were gonna look at some gaming hot takes today. I want to kind of look into a couple of these. So this first one is from the subreddit of Starfield, and it's a guy that's describing his process of going to a Best Buy and getting greeted by other people that were also very excited for the game. So first things first, just purchased new Xbox for Starfield. The experience was wild. The hype for this game is unreal. ... Too much? Nah, this is fun. You guys know me. I think hype is generally a bad thing because it makes you stupid. It turns, it puts the stupid glasses and goggles on so you ignore warning signs. But there's no denying, hype is fun. It's fun to be hyped over something, especially in a community that's also hyped about it. It's just entertaining. It's just fun. It feels good. And I'm not going to deny that. Like, obviously, that's the case. So as he goes on, as the title states, I recently went to my local Best Buy to purchase an Xbox Series X. Felt like my high school days browsing the gaming section. What I found incredible is that I was in the checkout line to get the Xbox, and the guy in line next to me turns to me and asks/states, "That's for Starfield, right?" Then I get to checkout. The employee asks the same thing. After chatting with the 4 people in the vicinity about it, how they're going to play PC versus Xbox, wives, girlfriends are excited too. On my way out, another employee yells, "Don't forget to pre-install when you get home." For one, I want to know where he's at that Best Buy employees are so cheerful and chipper. Last time I went into a Best Buy, it looked like I was at a funeral. Everybody, I felt so bad for those employees. They all looked like they wanted to die. So he's in like the Willy Wonka chocolate factory of Best Buys. Apparently they're all so chipper about it, but I'm not doubting this story. Might be a little exaggerated, but still. But still, the hype for this game is unreal and fun. It's great finding an online community, but this experience brought me back to the days when you had to go pick up physical games, consoles, and accessories, extra memory, etc. in store. Games were released and there was a frenzy at the local game store to grab a copy. That authentic connection and excitement, sharing interests and what you read about a certain feature. The shared energy in that story, and everyone can't wait to get home and play and explore, albeit this was only maybe 5 people and the store was pretty empty, so not quite there, but it gave me those vibes as we chatted for a few minutes there in that moment. Been a long while since I experienced that, and it was great. I love the shared excitement for this game. And then the first upvoted comment, 32 days, 19 hours. People are counting it. And listen, this is like, these are the posts that actually make me pause and go, like, should I stop with like the keep your hype in check videos? Should I stop with the let's think about this more critically videos? Because it's true, this stuff is fun. It just is. It is fun to be really excited to have a community of people that are all together in this exciting venture. And it does take you back to your childhood days when things were simpler, when you were just super pumped. And honestly, if the game wasn't that good, it didn't really matter because it was the one game you got for the summer or for the fall and Christmas. So you just are excited for it. And it doesn't really matter how well it delivers. You're going to be playing the crap out of it no matter what, right? We've all had games like that where I remember I was so hyped for Assassin's Creed 3 back in the day. I finally got it. I played it and I was like, this isn't amazing, but I'm having a good time. And I played the crap out of that game when it launched. And so it's posts like these that make me pause and go, should I just like chill out? Am I really helping by trying to calm people down? Or am I just kind of harsh in their mellow? Am I just bringing more negativity to the space than is worth it? And I've gone back and forth on it. But the reason why I continue to put those videos out is because I think that the like rationality and reason matters, especially when people are paying money for a product. If this game was just going to be free to play, I don't think it matters that much. I just wouldn't bother. But because we're talking about people paying for early access with like a $38 upgrade or maybe $32 upgrade fee, even if they have Game Pass, or signing up for Game Pass, or this guy going and buying a new console just for the game, all of this stuff, like people are spending a lot of money, which is kind of a big deal, especially economically right now, for a game that is probably going to be pretty good, but that also has some other warning signs, and I think that you should evaluate a little more critically. And I'm not telling anybody they're not allowed to be excited. Like, you can be excited. I'm just asking that we don't get so hyped to the point that we refuse to acknowledge reality or look at things critically. Because again, when you're hyped about stuff, it puts those goggles on and you refuse to acknowledge or even see the warning signs that are coming up. And some people even go so far as to just smoke the copium straight, as we've seen with some of those people that are saying stuff like the lack of rovers is actually a really good thing. If there were rovers, that would be bad. So it's actually really good that there's no rovers to explore with, you know? And once you get to that level, like I said, we're probably just going to disagree about everything. Because you're going to excuse anything. It's the same thing with like people who are in a cult and you bring up like, hey, a lot of this doesn't make sense. And then they go, well, anything that doesn't make sense is either you misunderstanding it or it's like the devil convincing you. Like it reminds me of one thing when I was growing up. We went to a church and the pastor said, if you're speaking to an atheist and they start to make sense, that's the devil talking. And at the time I was like, that does make sense. Yep, that absolutely right. But you think about it and you're like, wait, so if you talk to somebody you disagree with and they start to convince you and make a good point, it's not that they're right. It's that the devil's deceiving you. So anybody that disagrees with you, if they start to make sense, it's the devil. You can never be wrong, right? And that's the same thing that happens when you're super hyped, is that there's always an excuse. There's always a reason to explain away this thing, even if it seems pretty bad on its face. Same thing with like people saying with the NVIDIA being dismissed out of Starfield. Starfield is going to be supporting AMD FSR2 and not DLSS as far as we know right now. That's the last news we have on it. And that to me is bad because, let's be honest, DLSS is way better than AMD FSR2. Like, it's not even close. It's so much better. It's ridiculous. So it's a bummer for me. It's a bad thing that they're not supporting DLSS. I think that's bad. But inevitably, the fanboys come out, the hyped people come out and say, oh, well, no, it's actually a good thing because with a partnership with just AMD, it means that they can fine tune the performance and this game will run even better now that the performance can be fine tuned with this very specific partnership they have. And so all of a sudden you're able to just excuse anything away. And once you've reached that point, you are very prone to being screwed over. And that's why being a little skeptical, withholding judgment until you're justified matters, because then you can't be a sucker as easily. A lot of people mix it up. A lot of people think it means being a cynical prick. A lot of people think it means just being hyper negative or fixating on the bad, like the troll we saw earlier in that video. But that's not what it is. It's simply not being hyped until there's adequate reason to be hyped. And with some games, I think there is reason. GTA 6, gonna be real. Rockstar doesn't miss. And they've spent, when all is said and done, probably $2 billion on GTA 6. almost certainly that game is going to be considered one of the best games of all time. It just will be. We'll still look at it critically. We'll still see if there's any red flags or warning signs, because if there are, they're going to be really, really funny, because the sycophants won't be able to stand it. But that game, I think you're justified at being really, really excited for, even though it hasn't technically been announced yet. But with Starfield, I do think there are reasons to look at it a little more critically. He did the thing. Yep. In your honest opinion, what console do you think is better? Don't count exclusives, just console-wise. Probably full transparency. I think I appreciate the PS5 more, personally. I think so. I think the controller alone is a huge perk to the PS5 with the adaptive triggers. Xbox just played it so safe. Like, it's just a rectangular box and then a controller that feels a little different from the last controller. Like, that's a big bummer to me. They didn't really do anything with the software, so that they just updated the home UI like 3 years into the generation. That's ridiculous. The PS5, they updated the UI. I personally prefer the PS4 UI even now a little bit more, but they updated the UI. It was a next-gen experience, HDR supported from day one. Like, from the ground up, it felt like a new console, a new generation. Here we go. It's all fresh. Whereas the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S, which I have both, just kind of feel like Xbox One X's that are in different form factors. So personally, I think that the PS5 is a more exciting and more interesting console. Also, artistically and visually, very different appearance than I think anybody was expecting. It's also amazing it didn't leak, right? Like, that thing should have leaked bad. But I think if the PS5 leaked before it was announced, it probably would have been dismissed as like, okay, that's a really stupid fan render. Just being real. Let's see. And Kimbis, I'm sorry if I didn't call this out earlier. My God, I'm so terrible at this. Thank you for re-upping your membership. 5 months. Ooh, baby. 5 months supporting my favorite YouTuber and streamer. Did you have a good weekend? I did. It was nice and chill. We played some Warhammer yesterday for like 4 or 5 hours. That was good. Got through like 2.5 turns. Pretty baller. And then Saturday went to Water World, a big water park. That was really fun as well. It was fun. Like, just relaxing. Lachlan stayed back with his grandma and grandpa, Nana and Papa. And Ori came with us and just slept in the cabana that we rented in a pack and play. And then one of us stayed back with him while all of the others went out. We were there with a big group. So it was just a really good time. It was really, really good time. Anyway, also everybody, we just hit 100 likes. Let's go for 200. Otherwise my mods will yell at me. So please help me and like the stream. It does wonders. Okay, let's look at this next one. This one I think is going to be a little more intriguing. Same thing as before. Starfield subreddit. Controversial opinion. People advising tempered expectations don't seem like longtime BGS fans. I think he's talking about me. So he's saying if people are telling you to temper your expectations, don't get too excited, they're not long-term BGS fans. Interesting. Let's hear him make his case. I've noticed that a lot of the context people... Okay, I don't know what that even means. I've noticed that a lot of the context people who advise tempered expectations seem to... Okay, maybe this... I don't want to beat up on this guy if his English is just not his first language. Seem to come from odd places. Ergo, the state of the gaming industry, buggy games at launch, look at Cyberpunk, the gunplay doesn't look like my favorite superhero shooter, etc. Okay, maybe I speak for more than a few here, but for longtime BGS fans who really enjoy the thoughtful worlds, fun in-game dynamics, and zany adventures their games provide, we don't care. We know that's the problem. Because a lot of us have been playing BGS games for over 15 years, some longer. That means a lot of us are reasonable adults who know the difference between being excited and speculating far-fetched, unrealistic content for a video game. I'd wager many people with those outsized expectations for Earth-sized cities or hyper-realistic AI that doesn't fall into the uncanny valley are actually not coming from long-time BGS fans. In fact, a lot of those people sound pretty young. The truth is, it's okay to be who you are. No one's going to disagree with that. Are you an aging gamer who's loved BGS games for a long time and is really excited about this new adventure? Cool. Samesies, dude. Are you a young gamer who didn't grow up with those experiences, but who is cautiously optimistic? That's awesome too. Are you someone who attacks devs, crashes people's fun and excitement, and also has a sense of entitlement over or around how a game should give you every single little thing you want? Well, maybe time to touch grass. Anyway, I think with just over a month away, I'm feeling excited, and I think you can feel like you can be too. See you soon in the settled systems, friends. So first of all, nobody's saying that you're not allowed to be excited, and nobody's saying that you can't be who you are. You're allowed to be who you are. I will not fight you on that. As for what's being said here, it seems like a couple little things. So it seems like he's upset. If you disagree with him, or if you're one of these people that wants you to temper expectations, he ties you to this: someone who attacks devs, crashes people's fun and excitement, and also has a sense of entitlement over how the game should give you every single little thing you want. I'm sure there are people like this. But I don't think people who are trying to simply temper expectations are attacking devs or are directly trying to crash your fun. If somebody telling you temper your expectations and don't expect this to be the second coming of Todd Howard, if that crashes your fun and excitement, respectfully, like, that's not anybody's fault but your own. Like, that probably says that your expectations are too high if tempering them ruins your fun, right? Right? Like, okay. And then as for a sense of entitlement around how a game should give you every single little thing you want, yeah, if somebody's saying it needs to have like hyper realistic AI or Earth-sized cities and stuff, yeah, that's very unrealistic. But he also says that these are young people. It just seems like this is a guy who's probably in his 30s, maybe 40s, has been playing a lot of BGS games and doesn't care about the negatives that they bring. And then he's upset that people are then coming in and saying that you should temper your expectations. Okay, dude. Okay. If you don't care about the bugs, if you don't care about the clunk, if you don't care about all of the other frustrations that people have expressed, cool. Good for you. But I also don't think that it's super helpful to tie people tempering expectations to this, equivocating them to people who attack devs, crash people's fun and excitement, and have a sense of entitlement. I don't think that's what these people are doing. Like, if you're just going to say people who are trolls and who are doing all of this don't seem like long-term BGS fans. Probably, yeah, because if they care about, like, bugs, if they care about glitches, if they care about performance, if they care about all these other things, they're probably not BGS fans. Just being real with you. And that's okay. Like, it's okay. Dude just wants to live in his Bethesda, can do no wrong world, and dunks on everyone who contradicts him. Maybe. Let's see, Ripper 1337. I think the temper expectation statement more applies to the people who are expecting mods on day one that are on par with what we have today in Skyrim or Fallout 4. Okay, yeah, if somebody's saying don't expect that mod ecosystem on day one, if that's who you're talking about with temper expectations, yeah, I would say, like, they're not bad for doing that. That's very reasonable. Temper those expectations. Or they're expecting mechanics like a stock market, giving the crew a percentage of credits you get from their salary with a slide bar or something along those lines, where the expectations aren't really based on what we've seen, but more on one line someone said and extrapolating something completely different from it. I'm excited AF for the game from just what we've seen and from my past experience with the vanilla Skyrim and Fallout experience. Yeah, I think this is one of the things that is really interesting about the Bethesda community. Like, the there's like two sides of it. There's the people that play these games vanilla and that love them for that. And then there's the people that play these games with tons of mods and stuff, and that's almost a totally separate group. And it's really, really interesting because these games don't, of course, ship with all of those mods and all those adjustments and customizations. That comes over years and years and years of support from the community after the fact. And what's been interesting is like a lot of people, like I was talking to my buddy Caleb about this maybe a month ago, because he's one of those guys that plays Skyrim with all of the mods. Like he just kits it out and he goes crazy. He has all this crazy stuff equipped in his mod list. But he's never played the game vanilla and just played the game as they shipped it day one all the way through. He's just like, I just do the mods and stuff. And so for somebody like him, I don't expect him to have a really good time with something like Starfield on day one, maybe in a year or two, but day one, probably not if he relies on that so much. And people who play the vanilla games probably can have a really good time on day one. But it's interesting that the community is kind of split 50-50 because there are people that are just so heavy into the mod scene that they are probably not going to get what they're expecting on day one. Long-term fans have expectations based on decades of Bethesda games. They expect Skyrim/Fallout 4 in space, no more, no less. The unlikely expectations are from fans of other companies' games who are expecting Starfield to be an improved version of the other company's game, but keep the feature that made it inferior to Bethesda game. I'm expecting Starfield to be a Bethesda game. Not No Man's Sky, not Mass Effect, not Elite Dangerous with a BGS logo. And I think that's fair. What people are saying, and like a lot of this, I think like this person and I actually agree a lot more than I initially realized. Bethesda games have a certain, in Maddie's words, stank to them, right? They just have a certain look. They have a certain feel. They're always a little clunky. They're buggy. That's the Bethesda stank that some people love. It's like a good aged cheese, you know, you cut into it and you're like, oh, it smells like farts, but it's delicious. That's Bethesda, right? And somebody's going to cut that out of context, I swear to God. But that's okay. They know what they're getting and they like what that is. And that's all I'm trying to say. Like with all of this stuff, it's like Starfield is not magic. It's made by the same guys that did Fallout 4 and Skyrim and Fallout 3. And those games all have very unique vibes to them, very unique funk to them and a stank to them. And as long as you know what you're getting and what you're going into, okay. But there certainly are a lot of people in the Starfield community right now that are expecting it to be a lot more than it probably will be. And what I find interesting is like this guy is saying similar stuff, but he seems upset that anybody is telling him to temper expectations when all people that are saying that, like even the most hardcore BGS fans, could be saying temper your expectations. It's BGS. It's not magic. They're not going to have a stock market. They're not going to go in there and have it so you can buy any apartment in the city. They're not going to have all of that stuff. It's going to ship and probably be a pretty solid game, but it's not magic. It's just not. So I think this person and I actually agree a lot. The reason though that people compare it to like No Man's Sky, Mass Effect, Elite Dangerous, all of those is because this is a game being developed by a AAA studio after years and years and years and years of development and tens of millions of dollars. And it's competing against these. Whether you like it or not, these are its contemporaries. These are its peers in this genre. So these are the games that people are going to compare it to. It just is the case. Like, love it or hate it, that's what it is. Now, just the same, exactly the same as with all of these other RPGs that are going to be coming over the next few years being compared with Baldur's Gate 3. You don't have to love it. It might be different in scope or scale or dev team or whatever, but it's in the same genre, so they get compared against each other because they're the peers, they're the contemporaries. I love stank. Yeah, I love stank too, baby. I love it. I love the stank. I honestly think that the stank that people are looking for in a Bethesda game is probably also a big part of the nostalgia for games like Skyrim. I agree. Like as far as I'm concerned, Skyrim's combat in vanilla Skyrim is pretty terrible. It's just really terrible. If you've not gone back to play it, it's pretty stanky. Okay, it's pretty clunky. However, that's okay. You can still have a great time with the game. Like, this is the thing. We can call out all these things that are not great or that have concerns or problems, and the game can still be awesome, okay? A game doesn't need to be a 10 out of 10, perfect, amazing, to be a good time, to still be fun. You know, it can still be enjoyable. Let's see. I'm not tempering anything. All aboard the Todd train. I just don't understand this vibe, dude. I know he's kind of joking, but there's people with this general vibe. And I just don't get it, because like Todd screwed you over so recently. I just don't understand it. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. The controversial thing to me in your post is the idea that long-term BGS fans can't have tempered expectations or be even slightly nervous about the game or the state of the game. I don't think that's fair on any level, and it is dismissive of real fears people may have. I think that's fair. Yeah, I'll give him that. I'm a long-time fan. I've pre-ordered. I'm hyped about the game and have been for years. I'm also worried about a few things. Will the frame rate be consistent? I'm not talking about 30 FPS. I don't care about that. I'm playing on PC. I mean, is whatever frame rate you're going to have, will it be consistent? Or is it going to fluctuate all over the place? With so many games within the game, will all of them mesh properly and work together well? With that said, there are people out there who are such skeptics, cheers, that they shred the game for mechanics they've never seen in action before. I mean, they don't say, I have a concern. They instead say that was a stupid decision without ever having played the game before. That's hate, not skepticism. Well, if we're talking about, again, genres specifically, like if you look at this and you compare it to, say, like the rover thing, giving players a map effectively to explore that's the size of a planet, and then not giving them a means to navigate that efficiently, as far as I'm concerned, is stupid. I'll stand by that. I think that's stupid. I've not played the game, yes, but if you give me a map the size of Rhode Island, that I land on this planet and I can just go explore, but you're like, yeah, you have to walk on foot, even though you have a spaceship right there. That's stupid. The game could still be fun. The game could still be great. But let's call a horse. That's dumb. You just have to accept that you can't fly that ship over a mile that way to explore over there quickly. Cause reasons. Okay, that's stupid. That's just dumb. I would love for them to explain clearly why that decision was made, but we all know why that decision was made. It's because the engine can't keep up with it, not because that's what's best for the game. And that was reflected in like Todd's thing, where when he was asked about it, he was like, in some of the planets, you know, you use your boost pack and then you can jump, and some of our low gravity planets are just really fun. And that was his excuse for why there's no rovers or anything in the game. So I'm not convinced that that was a good choice. I would go so far as to say it's a stupid thing, especially because, again, there's the ship right behind you that you could fly over there to explore that you just can't. Or realistically, honestly, what they're probably going to do is they're going to do something like, oh, I can't set the ship here. We've got to keep it in orbit. So then he lands, you get off, and then the ship goes back up into the sky. So it's not sitting there. And they'll come up with some stupid story reason why it can't sit on the surface with you. That's my guess. It's going to be something really dumb. It's going to be a mod, yeah, and that's going to be one of the like really, really popular mods. JJ, I agree. No rover seems like an oversight. So it's up to BGS to prove me wrong and show me why we don't need rovers. Not confident I'll be convinced, but I'll keep an open mind. Yeah, and that's where I'm at. If you're like, to me, it's just such, after playing other games in this genre, it is such a 101 basic thing that for them to not put it here is either a huge oversight or a huge blunder, or they've come up with some way of generating these maps dynamically when you land, such that a vehicle would actually harm the experience, like that New World creator said. And If that's the case, I'm very excited because I would love for them to have come up with a brand new idea that's so fresh where they're like, yeah, we don't even need those vehicles. Don't even need them. I'm not sure how that would work, but I would love for them to surprise me and convince me. As of right now, I just haven't seen anything that would get me there. So I would just say agree to disagree. I think that there is certainly a point where you can slide from skepticism into just being a cynic. And that's something where you have to be very, very careful not to fall into. And that just requires constant kind of checks and balances to make sure you're not doing that. I also think it's important how the quote tempered expectations thing is brought up. If it's brought up in a thread discussing the topic like this, or in one where someone is screaming, yeah, that cartoon had mechs in it, and we are getting mechs, I think it's okay to voice concern or tell people to slow the roll a bit, respectfully. But if someone is showing their new controller or headset or screensaver and someone is popping into the thread and screaming, you guys need to tone it down, it's just a game, this isn't going to be as good as you think it is, well, that person's just trying to ruin someone's fun, and I don't think it's appropriate. I would agree. Yeah, those people are just trying to like be negative Nancy's. I would agree with that. I wouldn't call them a non-BGS fan. I would just call them a jackass. I would agree. Let's see, I'm pretty sure OP is referring to people saying Starfield will be a buggy mess like 76, and the people who believe the experience of completely unrelated studios is indicative of BGS. I think specifically, I've seen a few of these comments that are bringing up this comparison to other studios. The reason people do that and the reason people bring it up and compare it to like No Man's Sky again is because, love it or hate it, Starfield is entering into a genre that BGS has not entered before, and they will be compared to the contemporaries and peers. It's nobody's fault but Bethesda for entering this genre. It just is. In the same way that Ubisoft making Watch Dogs, putting it into the same genre as like Grand Theft Auto, they failed to live up to that standard, and the game feels bad as a result because people are like, oh, the driving in GTA 5 is way better than in Watch Dogs, and the driving or the navigation, the AI, the NPCs, the world building, all this stuff is way better in Grand Theft Auto. Like, it just is the case, because when you enter the same genre, you go in amongst these peers and you will be compared with those peers. It doesn't really matter if you say, oh, well, this person had an unfair advantage, this dev studio did this, or they've got this history, or whatever. It's like if you go into a bodybuilding competition and you walk on stage and you enter in like the 200 plus category and you've been lifting for 6 months, but you're going up against some meatheads who have been working out for 20 years and have, you know, injected themselves with gorilla jizz and elk blood, I think is what Joey Diaz called it, elk blood straight into their bloodstream, and they're just roided out the ass. Their balls are just gone at this point. You're going to look terrible in comparison to them because you stepped on that stage amongst those guys as your peers, and you can throw a fit. That guy, he has an unfair advantage. He's been doing this longer. Or that guy, he has more money than me, so he can afford better steroids or trainers or whatever. Nobody gives a crap. You walked on stage. You walked out there with those guys. You put yourself in this place where you're compared and competing with those guys. And that's the same thing BGS has done by stepping into this genre. So it's so dumb to me for people to be like, it's not fair to bring up what these other games have done. Like, yeah, they're different games from different studios, but they're in the same genre and they are the peers. What's fair is fair. Like, if BGS has god-awful, I don't know, facial animations when it launches, we get to call that out because there are other contemporaries that have done it way better for the same price, right? It doesn't matter to the consumer. Other contemporaries have done it better. We get to call it out. It's just not fair to be like, oh, well, actually, it's a different studio and they weren't trying to have good, you know, performance, and they weren't trying to get rid of all the bugs because that's just not what they prioritize. So it's not fair to bring it up and to talk about it. Like, it's just dumb. It's just special pleading is the term for it. It's just excusing this
Block
for this thing you like.
Who super chatted $4.99.
Oh, baby.
Sorry I'm late. I was watching the Raven vs Dark Phoenix death battle. What did I miss?
Oh, baby.
Tears of joy face with monocle.
Face with monocle. Thank you, my friend, for the $4.99. We've been talking about hot takes in the gaming industry and looking at some Starfield fans expressing frustrations for people telling them to temper expectations, which is kind of funny. Yeah, I love Joey Diaz, dude. I saw him live in Denver, and the dude is a freak of nature. Like, I wouldn't even try to do any of his bits, but he had some ridiculous stories and things. Oh man, I love that man. Okay. Yeah, No Man's Sky release was no smooth sailing either, so it makes no sense for Starfield. Well, and this is the thing, like, the higher these expectations get, not only the more clear the problems will be, but also the more hilarious it will be to see people trying to excuse it away. That's honestly what I'm looking forward to, is like the crazy hardcore sycophants that try to come up with excuses for things that are just clearly not working. Because no game is perfect. Even Red Dead Redemption 2, for example, had weird eccentricities and things that didn't really click together that well. It just did. Still a great game, but even that had weird things that didn't really click together. People had all sorts of frustrations with that game when it launched. So no game is magical. No game is magical is the broader point. So, but let's go into this one. Oh, and also, just so you guys know, we have a special guest here in about, I don't even know what time it is, in about an hour. We have a special guest that will be coming on and chatting. So, yeah, we'll get to that. But this one, this post, I appreciate this, just coming out and saying and being direct. What are your unreasonable expectations for Starfield? I appreciate clarifying that they're not like trying to do this. This is just fun. I have no problem with this. If you're just going to come in and have fun with this, like, cool, awesome, I love it. This isn't another temper your expectations thread. It's almost the reverse of that. See, I keep seeing posts where people bang on about overinflated expectations and how we are inevitably going to be disappointed on release. And it occurs to me that I couldn't really think of any such expectations apart from the few posted in jest. So I thought it might be a fun idea to collect these unreasonable expectations together into one thread and take a critical look at them, maybe determine what had been ruled in or ruled out, and perhaps most importantly, how bad it would be if expectations thing did not in fact happen, because most of mine I'd be fine with. My main unconfirmed expectations are free flight between planets in the same system, 1-to-1 planet scaling, and aliens. Aliens, I think narratively there's probably aliens in the game that they're just keeping hidden. As of right now, we haven't seen anything like that, but I would guess narratively there's probably something like that, some higher life form or species or civilization or whatever, but same thing, I don't think that really matters if it's not in the game. 1-to-1 planet scaling, I think this has all been, I mean, it has been clearly confirmed that it's not in the game, but I don't think that this is in the game. Plus, it wouldn't even matter if the planet scales, because from what Todd has said, they're generating the planets like when you land, and then they place objects around that. So I don't think that that's actually how that works. And then as for free flight to planets within the same system, it just depends. Honestly, I don't think Starfield's going to have the ships fly very quickly, so I don't think that this will be in, but let's see. Expectations. I'm kind of looking forward to flying around the planets and moons and setting up cool screenshots. I'm looking forward to lurking on trade routes out in the dark and waiting for a fat, undefended merchant man to come past. I want to sweep through the fringes of a system just to see if some derelict hulk or interesting asteroid pigs on the radar. Or pings. Pigs. Asteroid pig. Pings the radar. Pigs. I was like, asteroid pigs? That seems interesting. Sure. I think it'd be cool. I'm going to assume some sort of time compression, because not even Kerbal makes you do space flight in real time. Come on, guys. And that jumping between planets is available for the impatient. Maybe. I mean, it's just people forget how much freaking space is between planets, even in our own solar system. It's outrageous. Millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of miles. It's crazy how spread out things are. Like if you're on Earth and you want to look off and figure out where Jupiter is, you barely see it. On a good night that's very clear at certain times of year, you can see a little pinprick of light. You can, but it's not that easy. So it's just, we're talking about things that are stupid far away. Worst case scenario is that we get a bubble of space around each planet and we have to use the grav drive to change between planets. It's going to feel a little cheap. If so, why hasn't this long lost derelict station been detected? It's been just out of range of planetary radar for the last 100 years, but you know, I can cope. All the amazing stuff from the direct is still going to be amazing. Okay. Scaling of planets, what it says on the tin, I just think it would be cool to have that much space. I mean, it doesn't cost anything given how we think planets will be generated, so I can't see a reason to make them smaller, except maybe that some folks seem to find the size a bit intimidating. I kind of like that though. It gives me a sense of how big the universe is and how small I am in comparison. That's something something that doesn't usually come out in space games, and I think might be a good thing if it did. Worst case scenario, absolute worst case scenario is that all the planets we land on give us looped instance maps about the size of Skyrim. Kind of meh, and it's going to make Todd's infinite space comments ring a bit hollow, but honestly, that would still be a lot of map to explore. I'd be fine with it. Yeah, did he describe it as infinite space? Oh, Todd. Oh, Todd. Oh, man. Spacewalks. I doubt there's spacewalks. Maybe like you can jump out and just float into space, but I doubt it. Meteor showers and eclipses. Maybe, I don't know. I don't think that'll be there either. Completely unreasonable expectation. A working, fully fleshed out economy system where trading and outposts are actually meaningful. Yeah, I don't think that's going to be there. Some underwater content. I mean, sure, it's going to have big, but we already know the existence of aurora fish. It's not a huge leap to think there will be other fishes in ocean planets. I've not heard them say anything about ocean planets. Maybe there is. I want to be able to become a stowaway on some other ship and they warp drive with me in it, and I'll have to hijack said ship and return to my ship. I want that dreadful feeling of basically being stranded in space without my ship or crew, and I gotta find my way to return to them. Maybe in like a story mission I could see that. I want autopilot because then I can move around the ship, repair it, something else. Just want the game to feel more free, I guess. Probably, yeah. Or you just sit in the ship. If it is the case that you have to like warp drive or grav drive to other planets, it's probably fairly quick. So you'll just get up out of your seat while the ship just sits there. And maybe you have, like they said, a crew member sitting in the pilot seat or something. But my understanding is that you can get up and walk around the ship. My unreasonable expectation is stolen from the game X4, where as a player, you have a lot of influence over trade and production via player-made star bases and trader fleet. More economy stuff, okay. I don't think I've heard anything describing a bigger or more elaborate economy than we've seen in other games. And they've said, like, Todd has done talks with developers and done interviews where he discussed, like, Oblivion, where they had a couple of like pretty early on ideas for the economy where like NPCs would walk in, they would say, oh, I want to buy that thing. And they would go to the local shop and they could buy it from the local shop. And then you couldn't go and buy that thing because there were only a set number in that shop and this NPC now bought it. And they would run into problems where NPCs would go and randomly just decide they want to buy every tomato available in the shop. And so you go and there's just no tomatoes available until the store resets. And so then they got to figure out what to do. And there would be other cases where, you know, somebody would come in and they would just decide they were going to buy everything in the shop. Everybody decided to go to the store at the same time. So you show up to the in-game store and there's just nothing available for sale in the shop. And you're like, okay, well, this seems like a bug. It seems like a glitch. Even though technically all of the systems were working correctly, all of the NPCs just decided to go shopping at the same time. So sometimes realistic economies are not actually that useful. In a game, sometimes even when they work well, it feels like it's not working right because it's not fun. So sometimes just because somebody says they want like an economy system, if you play it through, it doesn't actually end up working the way that they would have thought. And that's what Todd's described before. Is like a lot of the time they ended up just having to pull things back because it didn't actually work the way they wanted it to. So there's that. I grew up playing every game at 25 FPS for years, so I guess my standards are low. Well, and here's the thing. If you're okay with playing at like 25 FPS, there are some people who are going to be chill with that. Like Starfield chugs like crazy every time you try to land the ship and you go into a new area. I'm sure stuff like that will be present. And if that is the case and you're okay with it, cool. Good for you. I'm glad you can tolerate those bugs, but a lot of people can't. And you're just going to see a lot of people like coping and saying, it's really not that big of a deal. The game doesn't, you can just walk through the city. Yeah, the frame rate's lower, but it doesn't matter. I'm like, okay, you don't care. For other people, they do care. And it causes like motion sickness. It can cause them to just general nausea. I'm somebody, if I'm playing a game and the frame rate, especially in first person, if it's fluctuating even within a few frames, it makes me nauseous. I have to turn off the game. I just can't play it. And as bad as controller, mouse and keyboard, hell no, though. Yeah. Mouse and keyboard is where it really rears its ugly head. After experiencing 60 FPS, I can't go back to 30. Yeah, and I think the whole discussion over 30 versus 60 frames is interesting to me because it's on the one hand, yeah, some of the best games of all time released at 30 FPS, and that's okay. But at the same time, there are many games that have released contemporarily nowadays that are launching at 60 FPS, and a lot of people have grown accustomed to that and have accepted it as the new standard, at least to have that as an option, at least to have it like available. So sorry, somebody's calling my work phone. I don't recognize the number. So yeah, it's just a lot of trickiness with it. I think that there's pros and cons to each side of it, though. Like the 30 FPS thing, if that allows them to build a more complex game, awesome. But if it also leads to difficulties where like the gunplay feels bad, then I'm not interested in that. Like I don't care if the game looks a little better if it feels like crap to play. But if it does in fact lock at 30 and it feels good to play, awesome. But that's something we don't know until we get our hands on it, you know? We'll have to withhold judgment. I know. Might have to withhold judgment. Okay, real quick, everybody. Okay, this is an IGN video. No, okay. Hold on. Oh, Path of Exile launched something. Okay, well, let's touch on this actually first, and then I will take a quick bathroom break, and then we'll come back. We're going to have a special guest on as well, which should be interesting. So, first things first, I saw this article pop up on my feed, and I thought it was interesting, so I pulled it up. And on the one hand, it seems to be a little bit like rage baiting initially, but it actually seems pretty... I think it's a genuine article. I think it's genuine. Okay. I will say it's not Maddie. It's not Maddie. Maddie just moved into a new house. His schedule is very, very full right now. But we can try to get Maddie on soon. I think he'd be down to do that. So with this, let's see. Spider-Man 2 looks like a movie I've already seen twice. I remember walking out of the theater in 2018 after watching Into the Spider-Verse, completely overwhelmed by what its creators had achieved. Back then, I believed it marked the end of an era of forced adaptations that followed the well-known patterns about one of the most popular superheroes ever, who had already starred in 8 movies and countless games. This year, the arrival of Across the Spider-Verse, that feeling was reinforced, as it proved once again that captivating stories and characters could successfully break away from their past iterations. And yet, following the beaten path seems exactly what Insomniac is doing with its upcoming Spider-Man 2. Instead of taking risks, the game appears somewhat generic on the surface, lacking originality and imagination at every turn. It's like the studio is playing it safe, sticking too closely to the established canon we've seen in other Spider-Man films and games for ages. I'm not saying the Spider-Man 2 looks bad or will be a bad game. We can't judge it fully until it's released and we get to play it. However, based on what Insomniac has shown us so far, I'm not feeling very enthusiastic. The game appears to rely heavily on tired Spider-Man tropes from the past decade, with only minor changes to characters, villains, and their relationships. Oh look, there's Venom in the game. How cool is that? He even looks and sounds exactly like the Venom we've already seen in the 2007 Spider-Man 3 and Tom Hardy Venom movies. It would have been great to see a fresh take on the iconic anti-hero, but instead it feels like the game is just recycling what came before, and I find little joy in it. Then he goes through a bunch of other things that he feels frustrated by with regard to kind of recycling already established characters, settings, plot devices, all sorts of stuff. And he describes how it just isn't that compelling to him coming off of Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse, which I think is a genuine thing. I don't think this guy's writing this to bait. This is from Vlad Mazanko, by the way. I don't think he's trying to bait anything. I just think he's honestly like coming off of Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse, two amazing movies, extremely creative. He's just like, you know what? I just feel like this is very milquetoast. This is very safe. This is very bland in comparison, which frankly, from what we've seen, kind of is. But I think it's important to note Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man on PS4 and Miles Morales on PS4 or PS5, I guess. They're not trying to be Into the Spider-Verse. They're not trying to be Across the Spider-Verse. They're not trying to do the same thing. Like, those movies were trying to do something very novel, very different, very creative, and something that nobody had ever seen before. And they really cranked those knobs and did something wild. Whereas the games are much more about like safe, I think, fan service in a way. They're not trying to do anything wacky. They're trying to deliver a solid game where you can play as Spider-Man and Miles Morales and MJ and now Venom, and you can live out that fantasy in a Spider-Man story swinging around New York, or in this game will be flying as well. And so I think they're both achieving what they're setting out to do. I think there are things I've seen a lot of people express, concerns or frustration or anxiety about, say, the fact that Spider-Man 2 looks very similar to Spider-Man on PS4, and they're not sure how much it's actually going to bring to the table that's different. And that's something I've said for a long time, that I personally don't know how you make a second game with the same map effectively and make it feel really fresh and unique without it getting stale after a few hours, because you've basically been there, done that. And with Spider-Man, it's New York. They're adding some bureaus, so making it a little bit bigger and better, but it's still a concern. With Tears of the Kingdom, probably the most recent direct example, that's another game where they basically recycled the same map and they reworked it, and they added the depths, and then they added the sky sections, the sky islands, and it worked really well. But it's still fundamentally Hyrule. It's still the same map that we had in Breath of the Wild, reworked a little bit. And frankly, anecdotal, so it's not something like evidence or proof or anything, but my anecdotal experience is that Tears of the Kingdom has, for me, gotten a little dry after 60 hours or so of gameplay, which is still an insane amount, to be fair. But I've gone through, cleared the map, gotten a ton of shrines, I've done a ton of stuff in the game, and I just currently feel like I don't have the urge to go and explore every nook and cranny of Hyrule like I had with the first game, Breath of the Wild, because I've been there, done that. I've already been to those corners of the map. I've already seen what that looks like. And yes, now there's probably new encounters and new stuff, but fundamentally it's just not as exciting because I've already seen that. I've already been to that corner of the map. I've already been on top of Mount Doom to trigger the Nintendo fanboys. But it's still a great game, but it got a little dry. It got a little dry because I've already seen that. So I do think there are concerns that people have had with how are they going to make Spider-Man 2 feel really fresh with it being set in New York again, with some other stuff. But honestly, like if anybody could figure it out, it would be Insomniac. They're a phenomenal team of developers. They really know what they're doing. And here's the other thing that is just important to remember. We don't know what we don't know. Nobody knew about the depths until Tears of the Kingdom came out. They didn't talk about that at all before the game came out. Yeah, actually it's not called Mount Doom. Nobody talked about the depths. Nobody had any idea that was in the game at all. And that's the size of Hyrule just underground. So there was basically another map that they just never talked about. So you never know what they have up their sleeves, for one. Two, we're sitting here kind of chatting about the game, and we're like, I don't know how they would make New York as exciting or how they would make this compelling in another game. And then we move on and we talk about something else. These guys are going into the office and working on this game for years. Every day, Monday through Friday. And they're talking with other developers who have had ideas through all the development of the first game and are trying actively to come up with ways to make it more exciting with the second game. And they figure it out. God of War Ragnarok managed to pull it off. And a lot of people had the same concern about that. So, while I understand the concerns and the frustrations and the anxieties around it, I think at the end of the day, we don't know what we don't know. A lot of the time, these devs have some tricks up their sleeves that they keep hidden before the game launches because they want it to be a surprise, of course. Why show their hand if they don't have to? And frankly, if a talented and capable dev team puts a game together, usually it just gets better and better. So I'm looking at Spider-Man 2 and I'm expecting it to be awesome. Insomniac is an incredibly capable team. And while while I can acknowledge the concerns about making the game set in the same place and reusing a lot of stuff, I can also acknowledge that they thought about all of this 4 or 5 years ago and came up with solutions that they felt answered those concerns and then started work in developing this game. So my guess is they've already taken care of it. That's my stance. That's my stance. Division Heartlands. Let's see. I mean, personally right now, I don't have anything on the schedule or docket for it. I have nothing against it or anything. I just don't currently have anything on the docket for it. If Ubisoft reaches out and is like, hey, you want to check it out? I'll check it out. I'd love to. But as of right now, I don't have anything on the schedule. Just full transparency. Full transparency, being real with you. Where's this energy for Starfield? Well, because again, it's just a different beast. It's a different team. If you were talking about the Bethesda of, say, 2012, maybe even 2014, 15, I would be saying the same exact stuff about Fallout 4. Like, yeah, I'm worried about this, I'm worried about that, but it's a very, very capable team. And then they made a couple of really basic, surprising mistakes. Oh, no way. Did I? Oh, sweet baby Jesus. Okay. Okay. Okay, that's... Damn. Okay. Well, I'm sorry. I'm a little taken back by this. I got an email that I was frankly I was not expecting to get, and if this is in fact the case, this would be insane. So I'm gonna shut up before I say something stupid and I'm not allowed to say, and get myself in trouble. Sorry to bait you like that. Anyway, let's just move. Let's just move on. So let's see. We got 30 minutes. Yeah, Todd sent me some risque photos. We get along. I mean, you think I just have a cutout of him for nothing? No. I use that thing. Oh God. No, I saw somebody ask earlier about Starfield review copies. Honestly, I don't think Starfield's review copies probably go out until like just a week before. When's the early access for Starfield? It's like 5 days before the official launch, right? So it's like, yeah, 5 days before, 5-day early access, and it launches on what day? Come on. It launches on... Why is this so hard to find? Oh my God. So it's just August 31st. The launch is September 6th, so then the... Okay, so it's September 1st? Okay, well, whatever it is. I would expect the review embargo to lift, I would guess probably the day of or the day before early access. Hopefully the day before early access, so that would make it like August 30th or whatever. And no, August also has 31 days. So August 31st would make sense. And then after that, I mean, probably they give everybody a week with the game. So they probably send the game out end of week 24th or 25th. They probably send it to written journalists 2 weeks ahead of time. Start making guides and stuff. So they'll send it to IGN and those guys early. I think IGN mentioned August 31st at 5. Okay. Okay. Will the early access be the whole game or more of a demo? The whole game. I don't think they've said anything about it being just like the first act or something. I think it's the whole game. It's just early access. To get it though, it's like you have to upgrade to the premium edition, and upgrading to the premium edition through Game Pass, I think is what? Did we find it? It's like 30. Okay, it's 35. Save 350. Or okay. So then it's just under like $32 if you do it and you have Game Pass. But this is specifically to upgrade to the premium edition from the Game Pass version. So even if you have Game Pass, they can still get $35 out of you. And a lot of people are going to do that. Like a lot of those Game Pass subscribers are going to be doing that. No pre-ordering? I agree, dude. I don't think you should pre-order. If they release reviews the day before, like IGN's saying, the day before, and people try it and have a wonderful time and reviews are great, awesome. Zach, I know somebody's gonna clip that. Jesus. Does your game just not work if you upgrade through Game Pass and then eventually cancel your subscription? Yeah, you just lose access to it. So if you upgraded, my understanding is that you just are out that $35 because it was an upgrade to a subscribed version of the game, like, you know, so it just doesn't really work. Okay. Okay. So what we're going to do here in just a minute, we are going to talk to our special guest, who is the one and only, let me pull it up. The one and only So Says Jay, which, if you're not familiar with So Says Jay, makes some really, really in-depth and pretty elaborate and intense content about the Assassin's Creed franchises and associated releases. Make some really elaborate stuff. Put up this video about 3 weeks ago, about an hour and a half long, on Assassin's Creed Unity, titled "We Deserve Better Than Assassin's Creed Unity." So we are going to talk to the man, the myth, the legend here in just a little bit and get his thoughts, make his case, and kind of discuss the game, and see kind of what's up with it. It's going to be very interesting. We've done this a few times with some other streamers and YouTubers where we have them come on and kind of make their case, then we can chat about it. And sometimes it's like a little bit of a debate. Oftentimes it's just kind of like, oh, that's interesting, and we can just kind of chat through it from there. But I think it's going to be a really interesting conversation, and I'm excited about it because, as you guys know, I love me some Assassin's Creed Unity. I'm a bit of a sucker. Zerfy, you should get Force Gaming on the podcast to talk about the day before when more news comes up. Yeah, I would like to do that. I think we mentioned that before, trying to have him come on. The day before is just such a weird thing. It's like whenever a new update for it comes out, it's a flash in the pan. Everybody like watches the videos on it. Everybody talks about it. And then everybody's like, okay, screw them. They don't deserve attention. And then everybody moves on. Force Gaming seems very chill. He does. I've never talked to him, but he seems really chill. I found him through the day before stuff. And he's just a vibe. He's a vibey, chill dude. But okay, let's see, just to give you guys an idea of kind of what the thesis statement of all of this is, just to give you a little taste of the first little tidbits. Let's just look at the opening of this. I'm going to link it. Go show Mr. So Says Jay a little bit of love. And let's just see kind of how this opens up. Of course, we're not going to watch the whole hour and a half. He's going to be in here in a little bit and state his case and describe it from his perspective. But this way you can kind of get an idea of where he's coming from.
Assassin's Creed Unity, once seen as a generational failure for Ubisoft, has seen a total 180 when it comes to online discourse. While its rocky reputation still carries weight among general audiences, the last half-decade has seen a throng of voices within the fanbase appraising Unity as a misunderstood gem that deserves a second chance. As you can tell by the title of this video, I'm not one of those voices, but I still do understand why so many people have come to feel that way. The visuals are instantly striking, the free-running animations are instantly eye-catching, and the black box missions are instantly compelling.
I used to go back and forth because I was like, okay, am I just misremembering Unity? Am I misremembering how good it looked and how good it felt to run around? And I've gone back to it every like once in a while over the last handful of years. And every time I go back, I'm like, nope, the lighting engine actually was just better. Like the subsurface scattering, the stuff they did with skin rendering, the hair looks a little off, but all of that, the lighting engine just way better than even, in my opinion, what they're using now. It just has a different look to it that I personally like a lot more than the rasterized stuff that they're using now with like Assassin's
Creed Valhalla.
So I think that's it. The movement certainly and verifiably is way better than what we have in other games. It is way more fluid. They have larger animation sets for it. I forget where I saw it. Maybe it was like a GDC talk, but there was somebody that worked with Ubisoft talking about the animation sets, and like they actually did strip out a ton of stuff for Assassin's Creed Origins and Valhalla and all those games. They stripped it out because they wanted to make room in the memory for other stuff that was going on, like the big extra large open worlds and the stuff they did with being able to, you know, take your bird and fly it across the map if you wanted to. All sorts of stuff like that had to get made possible by sacrificing other things. But in this case, I mean, I just think AC Unity in a lot of ways did a lot of stuff that is just not even really comparable to the modern releases.
And almost more importantly than any of that, the game isn't Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Nothing elevates fan opinion on...
Sorry. Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Hardcore, like, Assassin's Creed fans hate Odyssey. And as I've said, Odyssey is a terrible Assassin's Creed game, but a really good open world adventure RPG. But it's a terrible Assassin's Creed game. It doesn't make any damn sense. You have the Spear of Leonidas, and then, like, you stab it into people because they said it before the Hidden Blade. So, like, the iconic thing that makes assassins, they don't have because they said it before they even established it. So it's always funny. That's how you can tell somebody's like an actual Assassin's Creed fan first and foremost, is when they're like, thank God it's not Assassin's Creed Odyssey. It's just funny to me.
On something old more than something new that they don't like. And so when Ubisoft removed social stealth, streamlined free-running, added RPG-light mechanics, and removed long-standing iconography like the Hidden Blade, there was something of an exodus back to Unity by those who felt it better represented the series as they saw it. This video does not exist to compare the old games to the new ones. Plenty of people have done that better than I can. But I do believe that the same rhetoric that drowned out Unity's genuinely innovative mechanics with endless articles about faceless NPCs...
Also, I tried to find... I was never able to get it conclusive, so I was never able to do a video on it. Maybe I'll revisit it, see if I can hunt it down. But like all of these screenshots of the faceless NPCs and stuff, from what I was able to gather, were tied to non-updated graphics drivers. So it was technically a user problem. Like the user screwed it up by not updating their drivers before playing. I don't know if that's actually the case, but it seems to be that a lot of the things surrounding AC Unity's initial launch were intentionally exaggerated and blown up. The game certainly ran like crap, but I think it was such a funny thing and such a funny failure that it got more and more exaggerated. It was in the PS4 that was there. Well, the PS4 version had the disappearing faces, but what I mean, like with drivers, like a system update was required, and then for some reason it didn't push. So like there were multiple things going on with it. But like I said, I was never able to like clearly find what caused these issues or what made this stuff actually happen. It just seemed like they were contradicting stories constantly, or just nobody talked about it, nobody knew.
Also drowned out the many legitimate flaws that plague Unity to this day, patches and all. And this goes beyond performance issues and shoddy co-op. Every interesting idea or mechanic in this game comes with a caveat, from the free running, to the combat, to the story, to the beautiful city of Paris itself. I understand why people ask for Ubisoft to return to the mechanics we see in Unity. I too still do want that perfect Assassin's Creed game where the parkour is flashy and responsive, the assassinations are open and creative, and the world itself is denser than it is large. But I do not believe Unity is that game. I understand how it tried to be, but what I see when I look at it is a rushed, broken, and lazy game, where the corporate greed that forced it to launch in such an infamously bad state is still more than present in every facet of the experience in ways that could never be patched.
And we'll talk about this with him. I think it's certainly rushed. There's no way to deny that. Lazy, I think I just have to ask for clarity on that, because for me, what Unity represents is sort of like the last time that Ubisoft looked at the Assassin's Creed franchise and then tried to be ambitious while staying true to the franchise, like while still focusing on stealth, assassinations, and they tried to do a lot of stuff and be very ambitious surrounding what was core to the franchise. Whereas Origins and Odyssey were certainly ambitious, but they were ambitious with like the open world side of things that wasn't true to the original like core of the franchise, if that makes sense. So for me, Unity is just like the biggest, baddest Assassin's Creed game and the most ambitious Assassin's Creed game that we had ever had. And that's what makes it feel special in a lot of ways. People toss out the corporate greed argument when it doesn't apply. I think the implication was that the corporation was being greedy by rushing the game out. So instead of delaying it for a year or two to get it polished to where it needed to be, they rushed it out because they wanted to capitalize on day one sales with people that bought next gen consoles at the time. Could be the case. I'm more inclined recently to think that often it's just that executives that make the decision to push these games through aren't gamers, don't play the games, and so just honestly don't know how bad the game actually currently is. And so some people are like, yeah, they knew it would be received terribly and they shoved it out anyways. I'm not sure that the executives even were in that position. That's one of the things with like Cyberpunk. There's been conflicting reporting on this where some people have said that executives within CD Projekt Red knew the game was that buggy and put it out still. But then other executives way high up in the company were told that a lot of this stuff was being patched day one. They were being told that the game wasn't actually that bad because nobody wanted to tell the execs how bad it was. So I've heard conflicting stories either which way, but certainly like in this context, I do think Ubisoft was being at the very least foolhardy by shoving the game out because it clearly wasn't ready. And honestly, it doesn't really even matter at the end of the day, because if the executives had created a culture where the developers could speak openly and honestly about the state of a project, this would have never happened, because the devs would have said, listen, man, it's nowhere near ready. It's bad. It's very broken. And then they wouldn't have launched it. But because of the terrible culture within Ubisoft, it never got to that point. Nobody was ever able to actually speak up and have their voice heard.
As much as fans want an Assassin's Creed game that lives up to the franchise's original vision, I believe we deserve much better than to settle for Assassin's Creed Unity.
You deserve much better than to settle for Assassin's Creed Unity. I mean, I'm not sure if it's settling. I think it's more just like AC Unity is kind of the best that we have, because they went to Origins, Odyssey, and then Valhalla, and so now they're just like what do you do after this point? Like, if you want to play a game like this, I don't even know where you go. You know, like I think this is the best we have. We don't have any other options, really. It's more like these games show the incredible potential of the series. Yeah, I think it's just the reason, like he said, the reason that Unity has kind of gotten this cult following recently, coming off of the recent trilogy, is because that recent trilogy was so antithetical to the Assassin's Creed core premise, really, at the end of the day. And Unity is the last game, and yes, we had Syndicate, but Syndicate had its own suite of issues. I thought the stuff they did with Evie and Jacob Fry was interesting, but I still think Unity was the most ambitious. Unity has the far more elaborate movement mechanics in terms of free running. Of course, Syndicate brought along the rope caster, which was an interesting concept, but really it just kind of gave you an excuse not to use the free running system, which is strange. Like, AC has always been known for the free running stuff, and so to give players a tool that allows them to just bypass it doesn't make a lot of sense. It would be like if you gave Arno the ability to just fly. You'd be like, okay, well then what's the point of the free running, right? Like, it just doesn't make sense. So I think that kind of complicated it a little bit, and that's why Syndicate doesn't land in these same discussions.
By far the aspect of Unity that people have put on the highest pedestal now that the new games exist is the free running system. Looking at some of the things that YouTubers are able to pull off online, it's easy to see why. I mean, just look at it. There are so many unique animations, and it feels like the main character, Arno, has so much more flexibility in his movement than any other character in this series. Perhaps the greatest innovation behind this is the
I'm
any
sorry.
other character
This is just
in
funny.
this
I saw
series.
that this guy's just like carrying a cross. He's just lugging a big old cross through the street. I guess he stole it from the church or something. Like, what's he doing? Is he gonna go burn it? Where's he going with it? You know, it's just weird. What's your opinion of edge runners? Oh, I love edge runners. It's very, very well done. Very well done. You better believe edge runners is exactly the reason why Bethesda just dropped those little anime trailer things for the lore that they did like last week, because it was so crazy popular.
Perhaps the greatest innovation behind this is the parkour up and down system. In the past, you were essentially either in a free-running state or you weren't. But with parkour up and down, moving forward, climbing, and descending, now each had dedicated controls and a lot of new and unique animations.
I'm so pissed this is gone. Basically, like, you had to hold down, I think it was right trigger and A to climb up, and then right trigger and B to climb down, or just right trigger to kind of free run, maintaining your same level. And to give players that fine control really shows you the finesse that they wanted to empower players with, like the ability to really fine tune how you navigated environments. But now it's just A and run forward. It's infuriating.
With parkour up, you can run diagonally up a wall, spin from a ledge to a rooftop, or hop from wall to wall to quickly ascend a tight alleyway. While with parkour down, you can dive to a rope and swing down to street level, slide down a church rooftop, or twirl down a series of posts to smoothly reach the ground. When I look at this system, there is one major piece of credit that I have to give it. No video game in the entire industry, in my opinion, has attempted to give us a parkour system this flashy and expansive when it comes to different actions the protagonist can pull off. Some of these videos make me feel like I'm watching one of the most innovative mechanics in gaming history. But then I actually try to play it myself. Now don't get me wrong, you can look at these videos online and imitate all of the cool stuff that you see people doing with some practice, and with time you can start creating your own routes through Paris. But one of the reasons so many people bounced off this game when it came out was because actually trying to utilize the parkour system in this game can feel inconsistent, obtuse, and frustrating.
And certainly it's been a problem with Assassin's Creed since AC1. I mean, it's always been a problem that you tell the assassin to do something and then they do the opposite. You're like, okay, Jacob Fry, let's climb down this wall together. And then he just leaps off and dies of fall damage. Like, we've all been there. It's a thing. So this has always been a problem. And I think there's not a lot of ways to deal with it or fix it other than just practicing the controls, because frankly, it is freaking insane how this stuff works. Like, just watching these free running systems, like, you're talking about with an analog stick, the left analog stick, and then holding down free run up, down, or just straight. The systems have to be able to calculate where you're going, what animation it's going to play out, what you're going to grab onto, what ledge should be targeted, how far to move you forward or back to line you up with where you need to land. Like, they have to line up your foot when you're jumping from that ledge down to that bar and then down to the fence. And then they have to calculate, okay, now we're going to side run off of this wall, run through here. And then we're going to climb up this and jump over that. Like, it's insane that this runs at all, especially once you start to like investigate any sort of animation systems. Like, watch one GDC, I almost said GDQ. Watch one GDC talk that's like an hour long on building animation sets like these, and it'll just blow your mind at how crazy it is that this thing works at all. And part of that is just the controls are about as good as they can be, but it's just very, very tricky to get something like this working at all, much less with really simplified and intuitive controls that people can just pick up and understand. I mean, it begs the question, like, is a movement system like this even viable in a video game if it's that hard to understand and grasp? But as you can see, like, people will watch these highlight videos of guys running around Paris doing these crazy moves and stuff just because it looks so cool. So I think it's probably worth keeping them more elaborate. the more elaborate system. But let's see, he brings up Uncharted. Let's see why.
At its simplest level, you have games like Uncharted that will highlight stuff you can climb in bright yellow.
Yeah.
But in Assassin's Creed, you need to be able to climb almost anything. So what indicators can you provide to help the player understand how to navigate these worlds? The original Assassin's Creed did this by taking cues from the old Tomb Raider games. Those games revolutionized Traversal back in their day by creating platforming challenges that were built on clear grids. An experienced player always knew what jumps they could or couldn't make once they had a feel for the spacing of the grid. And so once those clear and identifiable rules were put in place, players had the freedom to experiment and bend those rules as far as they would go to maximize the potential of the system. If you look back at Assassin's Creed, it followed a very similar principle. There are more contextual moves, and Altair will have different animations depending on the distance of the object he is snapping to, but at the end of the day, the cities of the original Assassin's Creed are very much a series of cubes. When Altair climbs up a wall, you know exactly where he will place his hands, and if you make a jump, you know if Altair will land on his feet or grab the ledge. The predictability of the character's movements also made it easier for the devs to focus on animation blending and transitions.
I mean, I think it was simplified, but I don't think it was that good. Like, I think this might be rose-tinted glasses, because it still is a little clunky. I don't know if you guys have gone back and played the OG AC1. I downloaded it because I think we're going to do an iTried on it, where we go back and play it again. And it's still kind of clunky. It's true. It's like built on a grid, and it's very simplified, but it's easier to do all of that stuff when the systems are very kind of simplified and dumbed down onto just a basic grid. So I think that makes sense. But let me see. Let me get this put here. Also, like I said, we're going to chat with him about this. We're going to see kind of what his thoughts are and where he lands on all of this. And just see if he can kind of make his case, because I think it's an interesting concept, and I honestly expect that we probably are going to agree on most of this. I don't expect to disagree on hardly anything. But it's just, it's worth having these conversations, and I love chatting about these games with people. So, I love it. Okay. AC1 may be clunky, but when it released, it was wow. Yeah, and I think that's kind of what I personally miss about these games. Like, Unity was the last time they were really ambitious with the AC franchise while holding true to its core, like, the original premise of the franchise. And now they're still ambitious. Like, say what you will about Ubisoft, Watch Dogs Legion is ridiculously ambitious. Like, what they did in that game is just stupid. It's crazy how well that works. But still, damn, man. Do. You think Rockstar Games is going to announce something big at the Game Awards like 2023, like GTA 6? I've seen a lot of people say that they just don't think they're going to do anything sorted like that. They're just going to announce it themselves. And that's what they've done recently. And frankly, I think that they probably just announce it themselves. I don't think they go to the Game Awards because they don't need to. They tweet out a number 6 and everybody's going to be talking about it. The world will implode the day that happens. So I just don't think they need to. Like, they can go, and frankly, like, this is the one thing. The Game Awards, Jeff Keighley probably would like it just for sake of ego, but I don't think even the Game Awards, the other people that submit stuff, would be that thrilled that GTA 6 is announced at the same show that they're trying to get stuff. Because the moment GTA 6 is announced, nothing else at that show is going to matter. Nothing else. Everything else will be drowned out. Like, the moment GTA 6 is announced, if anything comes after it, nobody's going to remember it. Nobody's going to be paying attention. It's going to die. So at the Game Awards, do you announce it after they announce Game of the Year? That seems weird. Like, he does one more thing. That seems to totally steal, the high point from the guys that just won Game of the freaking Year, you know? So personally, I don't think it should be revealed at an event like that. Maybe at something that's specifically for announcing games like Summer Games Fest or something like that. But frankly, I would personally expect that they just drop it surprisingly one day. We'll just wake up and at 4 a.m. they announced it and there's a trailer out. I think that's what they're going to do. But okay, let's get Mr. J on the phone and chat with him about AC Unity. Let's try giving him a call.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
I can. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you great. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Everybody, this is the one and only So Says Jay. You might have seen it. We've been going through the first little opening bits of your video just so people can get kind of acclimated and familiarized with your thesis and kind of your point of view. But why don't you go ahead and just introduce yourself and we can chat about it.
Yeah, well, it's an honor to be here. Thank you very much. And, it's a bit late, but congratulations on the new addition to your family.
Oh,
Very
thank
happy
you.
to be here. My name is Jay, and I have this channel. I've had it for almost a year now, but I've been active on it for about half a year. And mostly I make Assassin's Creed content. I move away from that sometimes, but generally what I've done is I've been talking about Assassin's Creed in different capacities because that's one of the franchises that I grew up with. I find it easy to talk about, and I really enjoy talking about it. And so that's how we got led to, all the videos you see here and to the video we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I got to hand it to you with such a young channel, especially. I mean, you're pumping out some very good stuff. It's always blowing my mind when I'm like, this video is crazy good and very elaborate and everything. And this guy is like relatively new to the space. So I love seeing up and comers like yourself come in and start to put out some really good content that I think is intelligent and thought provoking all at the same time. I mean, it's just very refreshing because I'm sure you've seen some of the content that gets popular nowadays that's just like, dare I say, brain dead. So it's refreshing to see your stuff that's the total opposite of that.
Well, I really appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of discourse about Assassin's Creed, especially right now. It's just, it can get very toxic because there's so many things people want that, Ubisoft isn't very good at providing, really on both ends of whatever spectrum you're looking at. So it's interesting to talk about because it's kind of a simple series. It's easy to discuss. There aren't really deep set themes that you have to dig into, but at the same time, there's so much that has been going on to get us where we are today. And so I appreciate you having me here, especially because, like you said, I am a small channel and you are a big channel. And so it's very kind of you to have me on here. Even if at some point I get put on blast today, we'll have to see.
Well, we'll see. We'll all behave, I'm sure. Like I was telling everybody in chat, I expect that we largely agree on a lot of stuff. I think it's probably going to come down to definitions and terms and things as these things usually do. But I mean,
Yeah.
the video, the titular video that we are going to be kind of focusing on is the one that you put up on Assassin's Creed Unity. So for people out there that have not seen the video or just want to spark notes, how would you kind of sum up your thesis of that video and kind of what you were trying to say with it?
Yeah. Well, I think what I was going for here is I think there's a lot of value in talking about these games from a macro level, right? Especially because they're all coming out so close together, at least they were before. So you can tell how one game leads into the next or which game got more funding than another or more effort than another. But when you look at something like Assassin's Creed Unity, at the same time, I think it's also worthwhile to say, this was a good Assassin's Creed game, but, did it do the things that we wanted it to do well, or did it just do the things that we wanted it to do? Right? And so right now it does honestly, very honestly, represent so much that Assassin's Creed fans, or a lot of Assassin's Creed fans, I can't speak for anybody, but a lot of Assassin's Creed fans really do want, and really do want to have return. But I just have this hope when I look at this that we could do better than what they gave us there, because there is so much of the content that they have in Unity that feels like a first step. And on the one hand, you can think about it in terms of, the step they didn't take after, because it really is a shame that there are certain things here that they just gave up on, whether they be the free running or the social stealth or anything else like that. And then the other hand, which is, you really could have taken a bigger step than this, if you were going to do this. And I don't blame any individual developer for that. I blame Ubisoft as a whole, but even then I can't pretend that I was, working with them at the time. I can just see that the product is half-baked in a lot of ways, and you have some things that are ambitious but not quite functional, like the free running. And then you have things that just make me think, did you really even get a second look at that? Like the story, like the side content and things like that. And so, a lot of the discussion around Assassin's Creed Unity is the discussion of what might have been. And so in making this video, I wanted to talk about what is the product they actually gave us.
Yeah. And I think that's all makes sense to me. I agree that Unity is fascinating in a lot of ways because when it launched, of course, it was the subject of widespread ridicule, and deservedly so. I mean, it was a travesty of a release. And I think it came at a time where everybody was starting to get frustrated by games that felt rushed. And then it was also a time where people felt like there weren't enough games taking advantage of next-gen hardware, so they were going to come in and be like, no, this is a next-gen open-world game. It's everything you've ever wanted. And then it was just a disaster. And so for years and years and years, it was the poster child for, like you mentioned, corporate greed, for rushed releases, for executives that are just trying to milk their fan bases dry by rushing out products that aren't ready. And then something kind of switched. And I think you said in your video, it was kind of right around Odyssey. I saw it really start to uptick around AC Valhalla, or as we like to call it, Valhalla. And I think like it was, people have gone back to it and look at it more fondly now because, for one, a lot of the bugs have been patched. It still doesn't run well. It still has terrible pop in and stuff like that. But at the very least, it's playable, certainly. But it got popular coming off of AC Valhalla because that game is so antithetical to everything that I think most people would agree makes Assassin's Creed. Or for some people, it might be AC Odyssey is that game, which is so antithetical to it. So I think it was just people were like, this is not it, fam. And they started looking through the catalog and being like, where can I get that fix? And for I think a few more nuanced reasons, they didn't find it in Syndicate. Syndicate is interesting to me, kind of as a separate topic that we can eventually talk about, because it seems to be often forgotten for whatever reason. But Unity is, to me, the last time that Ubisoft was really ambitious while trying to make an Assassin's Creed game in its purest form, trying to make something based on stealth, on social stealth, on parkour, on a really compelling historical setting. And while they certainly missed the mark in a lot of ways, I think the reason why it's recaptured a lot of people's attention is because they look back at it and they can see that it was ambitious, that they were trying to do a handful of things that were really novel, not just for the time, but even for today. And while they failed to reach those goals, I would say probably because of executives rushing it, I think people can see what it could have been, and that potential is what they're attaching to, not necessarily the game as it is, if you were to play it today.
I think that is exactly that. This is very much an aspirational game. And you can look online, you see stuff by Leo K, by Jacers, by Swifty Unknown, by all these different people who do such cool stuff in this game. And it's not like they're liars. It's not like they're trying to show you something that's not real. You can do that stuff in the game. And like I say in the video, you can't do that stuff in any other game. And so it does become an issue of not only is this something that was ambitious, but it was ambitious in a way that no other game ever has been. And so that's where both the, I think, excitement for it comes out, but also some of my own displeasure for it, because I look at this and I think, wow, there are so many different ways this could have gone. But for right now, this really is the best we have. This is the pinnacle of what we've got here. And there are a lot of different ways that I wished it could have moved forward. And even if you look at a lot of the creators who make content based exclusively on the parkour, like LeoK or like Jacers, people who can talk about it much better than I can, there are reasons that people are just so attuned to what they did with Unity. But at the same time, there's so much of it that you can't overlook, even if you really like the game, that it just becomes frustrating trying to even consider what they might have done next after what they did before that. And a lot of people, you had talked about Valhalla, a lot of people see it as a black and white issue these days. Are you a fan of the old games or are you a fan of the new games? And I mean, you might see there, my other most popular video is the Valhalla one, which is where I talk about how Assassin's Creed Valhalla is my least favorite game in the series. And in that video, I talk about how I really like Odyssey. And Odyssey is kind of middle of the pack for me. It's not my favorite, but I got a lot of enjoyment out of it because I thought at the end of the day, it was a very good game. And there were even things that I liked about it from an Assassin's Creed perspective, not just an open world RPG perspective, that I liked better than some of the other Assassin's Creed games. And so being able to engage with it that way was something I liked. But I see a lot of the same issues in Unity that I see in, Valhalla or Valaha, as I see in the chat now. And I think it is worth considering how they kind of hamstring themselves in the same ways with both, even though they are such different experiences.
Yeah. Now, it is fascinating. I mean, there's so many moving parts to the Assassin's Creed franchise nowadays, as we've seen with just countless iterations, thousands and thousands of developers working on these projects, with executives that probably don't play video games deciding where the franchise is going next. And so, the discussion over Valhalla versus the old games is fascinating in its own right. But in many ways, I think it was inevitable, because you look at Assassin's Creed 3, which is usually the one I point to, where that's also another game that was extremely ambitious and really failed, honestly, to achieve a lot of what it was trying to do. They had that whole system where you can get these ships and then you can tie those together with like trade routes that they were doing a really kind of rudimentary thing with. And of course, they had this idea for you to be able to run through the open world expanse of the American forests out to the east, and it's all segmented by loading screens and none of it works together super well. But at the time, it was pretty solid. I mean, especially the snow deformation. I remember seeing that and being blown away. But when you look at something like Origins, you can see how we got to Origins from AC3. Like all of the stuff that they established there eventually fed into what would become the most recent trilogy of games. And especially, and I did a video on this, the Tyranny of King Washington DLC, which a lot of the developers from that would go on to work on Odyssey, Origins, and Valhalla. And that franchise, or that DLC, had a ton of supernatural abilities, like actually changing your form and fighting as a wolf, like all sorts of stupid stuff. And so I think the warning signs had been there for a while. It just took a while for Ubisoft to catch up. But I mean, to get back to all of this, you've obviously put a lot of thought into Unity and the franchise as a whole. If you were looking at something like the next Mirage, I know we kind of know what Mirage is now. It's more of a smaller project that is probably not going to be too transformational or anything. But if you were the director on an Assassin's Creed project, what do you think that Ubisoft should focus on, and how would you go about making the next true to form Assassin's Creed game that takes what Unity did and all these other games did and cranks it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, first off, I certainly have an answer for that question. But at the same time, it's kind of dangerous to get into it without thinking too hard, because then you once again are in the aspirational side of things, because you look at Unity and so much of it is fantastic at a conceptual level. And, if the only thing you needed to make a great game was good ideas, then it would be YouTube comments and Redditors who won Game of the Year every year. But then you actually have to make the game, right? And so that can be kind of a difficult way to conceptualize. How do you come up with an idea for the game that you want without having the experience of having ever developed a game before. But at the same time, as a consumer, I think it is important to be able to say what you want and how you want it. And like I said, I enjoyed Origins and Odyssey a lot. I really had a lot of fun. Odyssey got me through the pandemic, to be honest. But at the same time, like a lot of people do say, or Origins more so, is able to make the games more playable, more accessible by making them less ambitious, by making them less unique. And so what I look at when I see the old games, and this isn't just Unity, I like the other games better, but there is a lot of potential that never got met in the older games too. I see things like social stealth. You have things like that in a game like Hitman, but nothing where you can, hide in the crowd, run into the crowd, and be completely invisible. Social stealth that had a lot of directions it could have gone. The free running system that had a lot of directions it could have gone. And the combat, which changed so much that I don't even know if we really have a firm identity for the combat in Assassin's Creed. It was always paired animations for a long time, but they kept changing things up in different ways that made it feel different. And so when I think about what I want out of the combat, I don't even know what that would be. But just to very directly answer your question and not run around it anymore, when it comes to what I would want out of an Assassin's Creed game, I think most certainly I would want a city that is urban and tall and lets you traverse it. I think there is value in having settings that divert from that sometimes. But I think it's been long enough that I would very much want a big open city where every building has multiple other buildings that you can get to in different ways. When it comes to the free running system, I do talk about in the video how good parkour up and down is, because I really love the ability to control when you're going up and control when you're going down. And when you look at videos from people like Jacers, who I keep mentioning, they'll talk about how there are ways that you can brute force different descent options in all the older games as well, and a bit in the newer games. But they were never as clear-cut as in Unity. And so while I dislike the automation systems, while I dislike the way that the world was built in terms of not actually being optimized for Arno's free-running animations, I think that making sure that you maintain that up and down directionality is something that I would find very important for a free-running system. In terms of just the world in general, I would want content that feels like it fits in both an Assassin's Creed game and in that world itself. I talked for a bit in this video about why I really enjoyed the worlds of AC4 and AC Syndicate, which came out right before and after. And there's so much that you can do to engage with that world, whether it be as a pirate or as an assassin or as someone who is freeing child laborers or as someone who's trying to chase down a Templar on a carriage. There's so much that you can only do in those games because they are unique to their settings. And so I think that is a real benefit that Assassin's Creed has by being an anthology like that, is they can do whatever they want with these settings. So a setting that is deep and specific to itself, that is enjoyable to traverse in a more traditional way, and that has these black box missions. I would love to see those come back, because as someone who loves Hitman and loves Dishonored, I thought on the one hand, the Unity black box missions were a little lacking compared to a game where that is kind of the whole focus. It's just black box missions in a game like Dishonored. But at the same time, in Dishonored or Hitman, it's not like you can, jump to the top of a roof and do a flip, right? So it has its own unique niche still that has never really been explored. So the ability to go back to all those old things in a way that is just more functional. And like I said, I'm not a game developer, so I can't tell you exactly what more functional means. But, I'd feel it with a controller in my hand, right?
Oh, yeah. No, and I got to ask you, like, one of the things with Unity that I actually initially thought sucked, and then I played it years later and was actually really impressed with, is the co-op. Now, like, 2014 was the age of every game going co-op, and every single player game was going to get multiplayer and have all these modes. Even games like, I think, like Black Flag 3, like a lot of those games had multiplayer modes as well. And they all sucked. But Unity's co-op is actually pretty decent. Even today, you can play it, and you can go through these missions together with up to 3 friends, and it definitely doesn't live up to its potential. Like, there aren't a lot of archetypes, for example. So there's no way to have one of your friends that like specializes in or uses like a blow dart as their weapon, and then another person is really good at lock picking, and so you go together and you work together with different skills and things to complement each other. But it has really gotten me thinking whether that is viable or sturdy enough for future releases. And we know they're working on some multiplayer Assassin's Creed games, and they have some stuff in the works to try and go back to this. But the abandonment of the co-op and multiplayer side of things, I actually look back now and I think that was kind of a bummer, because I thought it showed a lot of potential in Unity and it was just totally abandoned, which some people might disagree with. Some people might look at that and say, no, it's good that they walked away from co-op so they could focus on the single player stuff. But I think that the co-op actually had a ton of potential. So I'm wondering what your thoughts on the co-op in Unity are. Do you think that something like co-op is something you'd like to see in future releases? Do you think that's viable, or is that just a distraction and something they shouldn't bother with?
Well, I'll tell you what, I think that the co-op in Assassin's Creed Unity could have been a lot better. I think the game is much less stable in co-op, and I don't think they do a very good job of balancing the enemy types in the co-op. But I honestly think that any game that can have co-op should. I love it when games include co-op options. Again, it's an issue of, throwing out the baby with the bathwater, right? Things didn't work that good in this game, and so we never see them again. I think co-op is just another one of those things. We have completely different systems now, so I have no idea what co-op would even look like in new games. I don't even know what the mission structure is going to look like in the games after Mirage and what we can expect from that afterwards. But if we can have co-op, I think that being able to explore these open worlds with a friend is something that people love doing basically in any game. People love doing that in Watch Dogs, and I can't really say that co-op in Watch Dogs was especially interesting at all. It's just the fact that you can have someone there, period, is a really cool thing. So I think open world games especially lend themselves well to a co-op experience when they're able to make them work.
Yeah. No, and I think Elden Ring is a great example of that. Like, phenomenal single player game, but also going through boss fights with one of your buddies is awesome. Like, I had so much fun doing that. But with I mean, I think you said something that reminded me of something I talked about in a video I did a while back on Unity. And that is that Ubisoft really looked at Unity and said, okay, this didn't do well. Everything we did in that, we're going to abandon. We're going to walk away from. And so like, oh, we had a really elaborate free running system. Well, the game didn't sell well, so we need to abandon that. And oh, the lighting system was really groundbreaking for the time. Well, the game didn't sell well, so we're abandoning that. We'll walk it back. And so there were all of these things that they did for the first time, or in a more elaborate or impressive way than they had done before in Unity. But because Unity was a failure for, I would argue, reasons of polish and rush, we lost all of it. They really did throw the baby out with the bathwater. And just now they're kind of reevaluating and going, well, wait, maybe we should like reevaluate some of those ideas we had back in the day. And, I think it's in many ways Ubisoft's get out of jail free card there. Yang Ya just posted a video on this, I think last night, where he was saying that, looking at some articles, he found that, Ubisoft in a lot of ways is putting all of their other franchises on the sideline and are basically going to be the multi-billion-dollar Assassin's Creed factory, and they're just going to start pumping those out as their main goal, which maybe is good. Maybe it's something really frustrating, and maybe we'll get super burnt out on these games. We'll see. But I totally agree. Like, it's really heartbreaking that they dismissed all of these other systems that had a lot of potential in their first form here, that never got the chance to see the light of day or get refined further, simply because this one wasn't received well. I can only imagine what the lighting system, for example, would have looked like if it had been refined for one or two more releases through that PS4, Xbox One generation. Like, I can only imagine. It would have been crazy.
Yeah, and I think one of the harsh things about Unity is everything, like I say in the video at the beginning, everything seems to come with a caveat, right? The lighting is fantastic. I mean, the only other game that has made me feel like that immersed just from a lighting system alone was probably MGS5, which came out just a little bit after. But even then, those are both older games, and it's just such a fantastic lighting system. But it's also a baked-in lighting system, right? And that's not an inherently bad thing one way or another, but it looks like they, if at any point they were trying to make a day-night cycle, they gave up because they thought, you know what, we've got something good with this lighting system here. Let's not mess with it. And then, you look at the free running system. I was just watching this content that we have up here, and it's like, wow, every single one of those animations looked so good. Did any of those animations look like it actually fit the distance that Arno was trying to jump, though? Right? Those look like jumps that were supposed to be for a jump half that distance, but they just stretch it out because it doesn't feel like they actually spaced these things for the animations. And the old games, they were very clunky and they didn't always work that well. But at the same time, if you saw something in front of you and you jumped to it, they came up with an animation for it, which is an incredibly complex thing. I remember the first time that I played Assassin's Creed 1, the thing that really sold me, even though that game is so simple, not even from just a gameplay perspective, but just in terms of giving you stuff to do, was you get thrown out of that room by Robert de Saab, and then you're faced with this wall with a bunch of handholds on it. And it just hit me. I can make Altair grab any of these handholds. I just came from Prince of Persia. You grab the things they say you can grab. Now I can grab anything. This is incredible, right? So just the jump from being so linear to just having basic options felt exponential. And I feel like the world of Assassin's Creed Unity is exponentially more complex. But the problem is, I don't think that the free running system is exponentially more complex. It's more complex, but it's not complex enough for what they were able to do with this world. And I think there was just a disconnect between those designing the world and those designing the parkour itself. And unfortunately, they never fully got there.
Yeah, I agree. It's why I think the first video I did on Unity that popped off was, I just titled it like Assassin's Creed Unity is heartbreaking, because there's just a lot of things here that, given more time, given more love, and certainly iterations, could have really been something truly special. And it would have been a totally different universe if Unity had somehow been polished and then done surprisingly well, nominated for Game of the Year, and then they focused the next trilogy on that stuff. Because Origins, as you probably know, Ashraf Ismail, the game director for that, he said that part of their inspiration, their main inspiration actually, for that new trilogy, for what they were doing with Origins, was The Witcher 3. And they decided that game was super beloved. We're going to do that with an Assassin's Creed Code of Pain. And in many ways, they did a pretty good job of it as the years went by. But that's why the whole meme of, it's a great game, but a terrible Assassin's Creed title, was born, because it's just, it doesn't achieve or hold true to the identity of the Assassin's Creed franchise, because frankly, that's just not what they were too concerned with doing. Which is frustrating as somebody that likes these older games. But I mean, here's maybe the main question at the core of all of this, which has been brought up a handful of times, I know, in my comment section, so I'm sure you've seen it too. Are we just past the age of these Assassin's Creed games? Like, you go back and you play AC Unity even, and the mission structure, the combat, all of these things feel markedly outdated compared to the contemporary titles that are releasing nowadays. And part of that's because we've moved away from paired animation combat systems. Now everything is like a third-person adventure melee combat game. So that's part of it. But are we just past the point where these kind of classical Assassin's Creed games are viable to do millions and millions and millions of copies? Or do people still want it and they just haven't gotten it?
Well, I don't have a lot of faith in Ubisoft going back to, things that we really want to see. There are great people working in any company out there, no matter how, greedy it is. You're going to find people who have a love for their art, and sometimes that will shine through. But in terms of what the overarching company is going to give us, I don't know. But it does lead you to that difficult question of what is a classical Assassin's Creed game. Because another thing that I've always struggled with is I've always felt like the games that they've been telling us they were giving us in trailers have never really been the games that we've gotten, right? I mean, if you look at Assassin's Creed 2, Assassin's Creed 2 is my favorite game in this series to this day. And sometimes I wonder, is that nostalgia? But I go back and I say to myself, you know what? A lot of this doesn't hold up. And for one reason or another, I think everything else holds up less. So it just gets to remain my favorite in the series. But do you remember how many of your targets, of your main like sequence ending targets, end in a stealth assassination in AC2?
How many end in a stealth assassin?
Like how many of your main targets do you actually assassinate stealthily?
I'm
not putting you on the spot. I just expected you not to know.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I of course remember, the moments where you leap from. I remember one I was on like a rooftop and I leapt at this guy that was walking up a staircase, and I like clipped into the staircase to get lined up for the finisher. But yeah, I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah. So in Assassin's Creed 2, you have this set of assassination targets, and people tend to remember it as this game where you go to each area and then you gather clues and then you kill the guy. But the first target that you kill in Florence, Umberto Alberti, and the first target that you kill in Venice, Emilio Barbarigo, those are really technically the only targets that you actually assassinate stealthily in the main story. The rest are either chases, like the Middle de Pazzi and Carlo Grimaldi, full-on mercenary battles where Ezio just full-on leads an army of people to take down the target instead of bothering to find a stealthy way in, like with Vieri de Pazzi and Silvio Barbarigo, or they're just scripted sequences, like Jacopo dies in a cutscene and Marco dies because they need to show you how the gun works. So you're left with two out of this huge, long at the time. At the time, 12 hours for a story, that was a long game. Can't say that anymore, but at the time it really felt like a pretty meaty narrative. And only two of those targets are actually people that you kill stealthily. In Brotherhood, you get 3 out of the 4. You don't stealth assassinate Cesare, but all of his followers you can in one way or another. But then you go to Revelations, and the only person that you assassinate stealthily is Tarek, who ends up being on your side anyway. So you don't actually kill any Templar stealthily at all. So, you gather up Ezio, who is the pinnacle of what an assassin is to so many people, and you see, okay, you stealth assassinated 3 people in your narrative over the course of all this. And yet what comes to mind when I think about you is I think about you driving a tank. I think about, getting a 50 kill streak in the Brotherhood combat simulator there. There's all these things that I remember that don't have anything to do with what people say is traditionally Assassin's Creed, but what defined it so much. And part of that is just because it's not what they were doing, but also I don't always know if they really understood what they were going for there, because the marketing has always been so different from what we actually got. And I look at that and I keep thinking, as developers, were you trying to make like a Hitman Dishonored type game, or was this just supposed to be an open world action adventure? Because that's kind of feeling like what you were doing.
Mm-hmm. Well, and one of the other things you brought up that kind of got my gears turning, I feel like people generally are feeling very frustrated with what I guess could be whittled down to a lack of consistency and in some ways like respect for maybe the setting or the narratives themselves. Because one of the things about the original Assassin's Creed games that I really appreciated is that while they're not like the most hardcore serious games, at least they take themselves seriously and they set it in these settings, and the characters are holding true to it, and they don't mix in a bunch of like supernatural crap. Of course, there's the Isu storyline, but within the gameplay itself, it's relatively grounded. And like killing people is, there's a constant pop up. It was a meme for a long time. If you kill another person, you're going to be desynchronized. Don't do that. And then it resets. And nowadays, it's just all of that's gone. Like, do whatever you want. Yeah, sink an entire ship, steal that guy's whatever. Who cares? It doesn't matter. And it's one of the things I found most surprising about Valhalla coming off of Origins, because even in Origins, if I remember right, Bayek can like commandeer boats and stuff, but he specifically says, I can't talk. I'm a magi. And then he has to give it back. He doesn't kick the guy off the boat. He lets him hop back in once he's done with it. And that at least was taking Bayek's role relatively seriously. They weren't trying to just act so cavalier with it. but you just don't see this sort of serious approach to the story anymore. And I think that that's no shocker that now players don't take it as seriously, don't respect the characters as much, because the developers and writers seemingly don't take it as seriously or respect the characters as much, because it's just all so surface level. And I just find that so frustrating, because I agree, AC2 for me is like the best the series has well, maybe not the best it's ever been. I love AC2. I just hold it very, very dearly. And it might also be nostalgic bias, because that was also one of the first games that I ever played all the way through, and I just loved it dearly. But it just feels like there's a handful of things where there's compounding issues that make it so AC just can't ever get back on the same footing. But I mean, maybe that brings us to the topic of Mirage. Mirage is being pitched as sort of a return to basics, a return to form. And what are your thoughts on it from what you've seen? Does Mirage look like the kind of game that you're more interested in, or do you have, like, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah. Well, also shout out to JJ Webb in your chat here, just hyping me up with a lot of the things I say. Very kind of them. But when it comes to Mirage, there are two directions I come from it as. I come at it from the just personal mind that I have, what I'm looking for in a game. And as I said, I like Odyssey. For these games haven't been declining. For me, these games haven't been declining. They've been a roller coaster. There is, some good ones, some bad ones. And for me, I think Ubisoft, in terms of my trust in them, that has declined. But the series itself, it goes up and down all the time. But, when it comes to what we can expect from Mirage, I think I could definitely have a lot of fun with it. I think that in terms of building a traditional stealth system that is functional, even having the detection system work and not break on you, to me would make it more playable stealth-wise than Valhalla and Unity, even though those two have very different stealth systems. And so, being able to look at some of their dev diaries and see that they have these vision cones set up, they have different detection distances that are going to be very clear-cut, that has me excited for the playability of that. I don't know what to expect from the combat. I don't really know what they're going to go with there in terms of what they're going to take from Valhalla and what they're going to try to do new. And then in terms of the free running, it's going to be what appears to be Valhalla, but with better mission design. And so in terms of what I personally feel about it, I look at it and I think, hey, this could be a cool game. It is definitely not going to be a game that changes everything. It's not going to be a game that, make people go, okay, they've returned to their roots. They understand us now. It's not going to be that, but I think I can have a lot of fun with it. When it comes to being more critical and thinking of it in terms of, an Assassin's Creed fan base, is in terms of what I see in comments, because everybody has different opinions on these different things. I sometimes wonder how much people actually want complexity and how much people want things that look complex, right? So Assassin's Creed Unity has a pretty messed up traversal system sometimes. You tell it to do one thing, it'll do something completely different, to an extent that I haven't really seen in any other game ever. But at the same time, there's a lot of different things that you can do, a lot of different directions you can go, a lot of different options that you have. And it's looking like for Mirage, what they're doing is they're utilizing the same very simple setup that they had in Valhalla, but they're going to give you more pathways that they set up for you. So there are actually going to be parkour pathways, which is something that has been missing in Origins, but definitely in Odyssey and Valhalla. So you're not necessarily going to be doing anything different from holding X and forward. It's going to look different. It's going to look a lot cooler. And sometimes I wonder if that really is enough for a lot of fans, because sometimes I see the comments and people are happy about that. Some people aren't, people who make long videos. But, it's easy to get stuck in that discussion as someone who has been playing these games for so long, who gets so into them, who's so interesting, who gets so interested, in these games, and wants to pick them apart. But a lot of people, even since Assassin's Creed 1, they would press the trigger, they would press the face button, and they would press forward, and they would automatically go through everything, and it would look good, and they didn't have to do anything on their own. And then later on, people like Jason okay, which is a catchphrase at this point, found things that you can do outside of that and became so interesting, and there was all this stuff that built its own niche of people who dedicated themselves just to this movement system because there was nothing else like it. But how much is that just a niche? How much is that something that people are actually looking for? Are people really just content if there is more stealth, but not necessarily better stealth sometimes, and more free running, not necessarily more complex free running, just more visually interesting free running? I think I'm going to enjoy the game. I think that as long as they don't botch it, I'm going to have a lot of fun with it. But in terms of where it stands in the series as a whole, I can't imagine it really pushing things forward a ton.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I think probably the biggest asset for Mirage right now is that, like, everybody I know, even like hardcore AC fans, are like, oh, I'm expecting it to be kind of just like a DLC. And when expectations are low, it is very easy to surpass them and to leave with a more positive impression than otherwise is possible. So I think that they're actually set up really, really nicely to surprise a lot of people. My understanding after, speaking to some people, and of course all the other stuff, just full transparency for everybody in chat, I always try to disclose it because I've been to preview events before, and then I don't want people to think I'm speaking with knowledge that's not public. I've not been to any preview events. I don't know anything anybody else doesn't know. Like I'm coming at this with all the information everybody else has. But from my understanding, it's, like you said, going to be AC Valhalla in a tighter shell in a pretty dense city that they've built out with specific areas for you to traverse and missions crafted in ways that they expect you to use maybe 2 or 3 different pathways. You're right. Somebody said in chat, let's see, RS Nos just saw on Twitter /X, oh yeah, it's X now, that according to IGN, AC Dev says Mirage will take 25 to 30 hours to beat. Yeah, that's what I had heard. And it's funny that nowadays, like, a game being shorter is a selling point, because that's so antithetical to everything that would have been established over the last, like, 10, 15 years, where everybody thought, well, bigger means more bang for your buck. But in reality, a lot of people nowadays just want a leaner, higher quality game to play instead of something bigger and more mediocre. So I'm excited for it. I'm really intrigued. I haven't been this... I really do think the word is intrigued. Like, I'm not expecting too much. I'm not hyped. I'd say I'm excited, but more than anything, I'm just wanting to know how this looks and how it works out. Because they've taken some time off, and usually when Ubisoft takes a good amount of time off, it's because they're working on some pretty big things. So while Mirage isn't that big thing, it means that Mirage is the first step towards getting those other big projects like Red, and then Jade has that playtest in just a few days. So there's all sorts of stuff coming.
Yeah, definitely. I think when I look at Mirage, my primary concern right now is what I identify as a lack of confidence from the team there. There's a lot of stuff that they're not showing us fully. I feel like we got a good idea of what to expect from this game, but we don't know what stealth segments would really look like long term. We don't really know what the combat looks like. Coming after a game like Final Fantasy 16, I'm going through that right now. There's a lot of problems with that game, and a lot of the problems with that game were identifiable before it came out. They wanted to show you this game. They wanted you to know everything that was going to be in Final Fantasy 16 before it released. Similar with Zelda when that came out. Those are obviously big games, and they were obviously confident about those games because they knew they were going to rake in some money. But at the same time, I look at these videos that they have put out for Assassin's Creed Mirage, and I find myself thinking, hey, this filter thing is cool, but like, what are the interiors going to look like? What are the stealth pathways going to look like? Combat, is it just you parry and kill, but you're saying that it's going to be more difficult? I'd like to see that, right? And for one reason or another, we're getting closer and they're not showing us this stuff, and it makes me wonder how they're feeling about it behind the scenes. Obviously, there's no way for me to know, no way for anybody but them to know. But I would have preferred if they were a little more forward with what they were giving us and a little more confident in the product they're making, because I'm sure they've been working hard on it.
Yeah. I've been I've tried to be as fair about it as I can, because of course we really want to know all the details. We're cautiously optimistic, but we want to make sure that this game is not going to be butchered, like you said, and they're being a little more coy with it. I thought it was really weird that this game was rumored to be releasing in March, and like this past March, and Ubisoft announced it late last year and then doesn't show anything. No gameplay. They release a couple of wallpaper stills, and they're just super coy with it until eventually they show off gameplay, of course, during the summer show that they did. But it's been strange. Like, they definitely are trying something a little bit different than their normal marketing approach. They're doing the dev diaries and stuff. My understanding is that they're probably going to have press do some gameplay demos this fall once we get a little closer. And so we'll probably start to see more in like a month, I would imagine. But as of right now, I think you're right. They're just taking a different approach. And maybe it's because the game's shorter, so they're like, hey, let's not show everything we've got. We've got something awesome, and we're just not going to spoil it. Or maybe it's that there's something wrong, and they're choosing not to show it. I'm not sure, but either way, it makes me want to keep a very close eye on it for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way I can predict how good the game's going to be, but looking at it right now, I feel like it's going to be a middle of the pack game for me. I feel like there are some corners that they're probably going to cut, and there are some things that it's probably going to give us that we haven't had in a long time. So I'm happy to see where it goes. But even though I obviously talk about things as critically as I can or as in depth as I can when I make a video, oftentimes I go into the experience of playing a game with the hope of just having fun with it, right? This isn't my job. It's just something that I do on the side, and it's a lot of fun doing it, to be honest. And I do it because I really enjoy these games. I've played Unity 5 times, and I think it's one of the worst games in this series. I don't play it out of spite. I don't play it to stick it to anybody in particular. I play it because look at Paris. Look how fun that is. Look how cool that looks. Look at the experience that you're getting, even if it doesn't come together in a way that I would like. So, I have a lot of fun with it, and I play it and I think, hey, this isn't very good. You could have worked a lot harder on that, or you could have really put a lot more time into that. But it's still such a unique experience and worth playing, and I feel that about pretty much every AC game, and I have up to this point. So I am looking forward to Mirage, most definitely.
Yeah, and I think, it's a good point to kind of settle on. I think that this is something that's kind of been lost in the last few years, just in the gaming industry as a whole. It seems like there's a lower and lower tolerance for okay or pretty good games. And I think that's silly. A game can launch and be a 6 out of 10 or a 7 out of 10, certainly an 8 out of 10, and still be worth your time and enjoyable. The question is just the price that you get into and whether you wait for a sale to get it. But I've had a lot of fun playing some games that I would probably rate at like a 7 out of 10 level. And with a lot of these games like, maybe Unity or maybe some clunk with Assassin's Creed 3 or whatever you're looking at, you can still have a good time and still appreciate the game, even if it's not, going to win any crazy awards or anything. And yeah, I think what you also said about why you're making these videos, like, you probably get a little bit of AdSense that helps and is certainly nice to have, but you're making these videos as a labor of love. I mean, I don't think people understand how much work goes into an 1.5 hour long video like you've been putting out consistently. It's, this isn't something you do just to like throw a fit or for some quick clout. Like, you're analyzing these games because you're passionate about them and you're interested in them. And I think, that's something we should all appreciate, because I think you, like I said, you make very thought-provoking content, and that's something that I think we need a little bit more of. Less reactionary, like super knee-jerk, follow whatever is trending on Reddit type videos, and more videos that make you pause and reevaluate your positions. So mad props to you for everything that you've been doing. You're one of those creators I'm definitely going to be keeping a very close eye on, and I'm probably going to be reaching out for some collabs here in the future, especially once we start getting more Assassin's Creed stuff to talk about.
Yeah, well, I definitely appreciate that. There's a lot to talk about, right, in Assassin's Creed and outside of it. And so I always look forward to going online and seeing takes from other people. Especially with Unity, it was always interesting because you would find a lot of the same takes, whether the title was "We Deserve Better Than Assassin's Creed Unity" or Assassin's Creed Unity is the most underrated game of all time. You end up finding the same points being hashed out anyways, both positive and negative. It was always kind of interesting seeing the places that we both, or not we both, but that people would land on, but just have a completely different opinion about. And so I think it is interesting being part of that conversation, being able to discuss it with people like you, which, as I said, is an honor to do. And I just can't wait for more opportunities to do that. I can't wait for them to put out more information and to put out more products, and just for video games in general, to give me more stuff to talk about. Because when I have the time and I'm able to set that time aside to do it, because like you said, I probably collected 20 to 30 hours of footage to make an hour and a half video. It's something that I really enjoy doing.
Yeah. Well, and you keep putting videos like that out, and you're only going to grow bigger and bigger and bigger. And who knows, maybe one day this will be your full-time job. You never know. Unless you're like a brain surgeon. I don't know what you do for your your day job, but you never know. You never know.
Never know. Yeah. And we'll just have to see how it all goes. But people have been very kind. I expected to put out this video and have people just like tear me apart, and everybody in the comments was just having civil discussion, which was kind of shocking. I was happy about that. I guess it turns out that if you want to have a civil discussion and you present yourself that way, then people will at least try to do that in the comments. And then if it's something a little more inflammatory for your title, people are going to come in a little angrier.
Yeah. Well, and also one of the perks, and this is a little cheat for anybody wanting to get into YouTube, when you make a long video that's like an hour plus long, people like that sort of serves as almost like a little bit of a gatekeeping thing, where people who want to just come in and have a very reactionary take, where they just come in and like, no, you're wrong, AC Unity is amazing, shut up, and then leave. They're not likely to come into those videos that are an hour plus long, because they're like, I don't know if I want to try to even get into that. So they usually will check out and just not bother with it. Whereas if you make like a 15-minute video, they'll come in and they'll they come out in full force. So if you're going to make your argument, definitely take your time, make the argument as comprehensively as you can. And the types of people that will engage with an hour-long video are the ones that are going to critically evaluate it, give you a chance, because they're giving you an hour and a half of their time up front. So you can have some really interesting discussions. I've always been blown away at how thoughtful some YouTube comments can be, where it's just like, somebody sat down and spent 45 minutes writing this out. Jesus Christ. Like, it blows my mind so consistently. But yeah, no, absolutely. Any closing thoughts, anything before we wrap up that people should know? Any plugs, anything you got going on?
Well, I have very little going on, to be honest. But looking at the clock, I'm just amazed at how quickly 51 minutes can go by. I came in here pretty nervous because, like I had said to you before, I hadn't done anything on stream. I think my voice cracked a couple times. But right now, I think it felt like a pretty clean conversation, even though there is so much to talk about. In terms of content that we discussed that was related to my video, I think we got through the first 10 minutes or so. So 50 minutes really isn't a long time, huh?
I know, right? It's crazy how time flies when you're having fun. And like I said, I've really enjoyed this. So as long as you're up for it, I'm sure we will be having you back on, and we'll talk again soon. And if you're available, maybe we'll even have you on the podcast with Joel Raptor. And once we get some stuff to talk about.
I had a whole bit that I totally forgot about, where I was going to say how this whole channel was just my elaborate scheme to meet the Joe Raptor team.
Well, I can make that happen. So once we get some stuff to talk about.
Now.
Yeah, exactly. We got the connections. We can do that.
Yeah, well.
But yeah.
Thank you so very much for having me. Yeah.
Absolutely. I've got your channel linked and pinned in chat. So everybody go send Jay some love. And yeah, I'm sure we'll talk again very soon.
Yeah, thank you, sir. And thank you, everybody in chat. You were very nice to me, too. Thank you.
Absolutely. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. What a wonderful conversation. Wasn't that nice? Just super chill. I love it. I just love when, like, you can talk about something you're passionate about with somebody who's also passionate about that same thing, and then have, like, a productive, interesting conversation. Oh, man. It's just refreshing. It's just refreshing. So yeah, go send some love to Mr. J. Seriously makes some insanely good stuff. And if you like my longer form content, he makes some long form content that is very, very thoughtful, focusing on Assassin's Creed and all sorts of stuff. And I think you will find it compelling. So go check it out. Go check it out. Damn, it's already been 3 hours in stream. I know, right? Jay's points were all reasonable, and I agree with most of it. Yeah, no, I like I said, I think we going into it, I was like, I think we agree on most things. I just think it's probably going to come down to definitions and just being as clear as we can with it. And once we, whittle that down, it's like, yeah, no, we don't really disagree on much of anything. It's mostly just like little tidbits, like when you say we deserve better than AC Unity. It's like, okay, well, do we mean we should have gotten a better game than we did at that time? Because I would agree. But then also when we're talking about why it's popular today, the reason it's popular today is because that's unfortunately the best that we've got for people that want that type of game. And it just makes me frustrated that we haven't ever gotten that. But maybe Mirage is the first step. As I've said, if Mirage is like really well received and sells well, and the community likes it, they will greenlight further games like this. Like it's a business. If it sells well, they'll do more of it. It's like when Todd was asked, why do you keep re-releasing Skyrim on every console 15 times? And he's just like, because people keep buying it. Like, I don't know what do you expect me to say? Because people buy it. That's why, Let's see. Luke, definitely get him on the podcast with Jor if Jor is down. Oh yeah, I just want to make sure, like, because he focuses on Assassin's Creed stuff, I want to make sure we do it at a time when there's stuff to talk about with Assassin's Creed. Because Jor likes to stick to the news topics. So I'll have to pull some strings, see if I can find out when we're getting the next wave of AC information. Like I said, I expect probably end of August we'll start to hear some stuff, because I think I have to imagine they're going to send like IGN to do stuff on it. So I'm guessing we'll get more stuff in the future, but I'm so ready for Space Marine 2. Oh yeah, no, if people have not seen Space Marine 2, hold on. Space Marines 2. Space Marine. Or it is Space Marine. Look at me. I'm the chump. If you've not seen this is the new Warhammer game. And it looks pretty fire. I'm going to be real. It's also Focus Entertainment, which they've been just hitting it out of the park consistently. Like, seriously, they are one of the biggest up-and-coming publishers to keep your eye on. But this is the sequel to the other Space Marine game, which is pretty good, but it's also, like, super duper broken now because it relied on servers that now are defunct and all sorts of stuff. It's just really disappointing that it hasn't been supported better, but this is the sequel to it and it looks fire. As for, I saw somebody was basing Zamakar. Who was it? I don't know. I missed it. Hold on. Oh, I don't see it. Crap. I don't know. Well, we have a few Warhammer 40K people in chat, and I encourage anybody who's interested in it to check it out because it is pretty crazy and it's a lot of fun. And I have this third camera just for building Warhammer figures on stream because I have gotten into it and it's good fun. I'm a Thousand Suns player though, so just be ready. I started painting Magnus yesterday though. Sure did. I'm so ready to load up the boys and slay Tyranids. Yeah. It's going to be good fun. Oh, baby. That also looks pretty fire, too. Hold on. Is that still available? Space Marine. Hold on. Space Marine 2 Collector's Edition. It's probably sold out by now. Hold on. June of 1969. Giggity. Oh, is it not? No way. Is it not sold out yet? Okay. Okay. Why do you think Middle Earth series was well received? Oh, the games? I mean, just honestly, because the games are like the games are pretty good. Middle Earth Shadow of War, didn't it win Game of the Year? Or it was like, I thought it did, but maybe it didn't. But it's like a phenomenal game. And then also Middle Earth Shadow of War was not as well received just because it was so toxically monetized. But the pre-order, there we go. Okay. But it's better now. Like we played it on stream last week for a while, for a couple hours. And I think it's good. Like the game is good. It's just so unfortunate that it's so toxically monetized. It just hurts my heart. Hurts my heart. Middle Earth Shadow of Microtransactions. Exactly. But the Nemesis system, seriously, is one of the most impressive gameplay systems that has really graced the gaming scene in the last probably maybe 10, 15 years. It really is that good. Like that whole gameplay system is wild. It's so heartbreaking it hasn't made its way out into the other Warner Brothers franchises, because they could apply it to like superhero games. There were rumors recently. Let me see if I can find it. Harry Potter. There were rumors it was going to make its way into a Harry Potter game. There were also rumors it was going to make its way into Mortal Kombat games, because it's owned by Monolith and Warner Brothers, so they could apply it to other franchises as well. They have a patent on it, so other companies can't really do anything too elaborate with it. But oh yeah, Atlas Fallen, that's one to keep an eye on. Oh baby, oh baby. When you get it, do an unboxing on stream. Yes. I have some emails actually that I was just looking at about some other unboxings we'll do. So wait for that. We're going to have some stuff to unbox. Also, I can't be too specific. Apparently, and again, I have to be very coy, we will be getting a package to unbox from somebody I thought would never, ever reach out to me again, which is very interesting. I was very surprised when I heard that. So we shall see. We shall see. Don't you love it when I'm super coy and annoying? Isn't that great? Isn't that great? so refreshing, right? It's like, oh my God, Luke, shut up. Shut up. Okay, I might have to get that Space Marine 2 Collector's Edition though. That statue looks pretty fire. Kind of. Anyway. Unfortunately for Atlas Fallen, I have a feeling it'll be overlooked with all the other great stuff coming out. I don't know, it might thread the needle because it's coming right before a lot of the crazy stuff comes. So they might be able to pull it off and just barely eke out some success. But it's really hard to tell because it is coming in a very busy year. It's just it's a crazy time to be a gamer, man. Crazy time. So great thing is Space Marine 2 Collector's Edition is that even if the game sucks, the statue still represents the franchise more. Exactly. That's why I'm like, if the statue is cool, I just like the statue, honestly. That thing's just badass. Anyway, guys, I'm about to pee myself, as you can probably tell because I'm wiggling about. I was gonna take a bathroom break before we talked to Jay, and then we got caught up in it, and we're having such a great conversation. I just, tough guide through it, but I'm going to pee myself. So I am going to go do that, not pee myself. I'm going to go, you know what I mean? But I've had a wonderful time with you guys. This has been joyous. I'm also going to go work on some games for review in the next few weeks. So I'm going to go work on that. And until next time, which should be Wednesday for the podcast, I love you all dearly. You all are wonderful. Again, go send Jay some love. Wonderful conversation. So go send some support his way. Let him know I sent you. And until next time, much love, everybody. Stay safe. And I'll see you on Wednesday for the podcast. Hugs and kisses. Bye-bye.